World Pro Racing, where sim racing becomes real.
L-ewwel ħaġa bħala Gaming Malta l-esports huwa settur importanti ħafna għalina. Meta nħarsu lejn gaming ma nitkellmux biss fuq l-online gaming, imma il-video gaming u anki l-esports. L-esports huwa settur li internazzjonalment qed jikber ħafna u Malta għandha rol importanti wkoll x'tilab f'dan is-settur. Coming back to home, il-World Pro Racing hija kumpanija li ditt mill-Maltin u qed tagħmel suċċess internazzjonali. Ġifieri Malta għalija hija pedina għall-ambizzjonijiet tagħhom fuq pjan internazzjonali.
L-ewwel rrid insir Formula 1 driver u ngħaddi lil Lewis Hamilton bir-rekord tiegħu. U mbagħad wara rrid insir inġinier.
Mela, t-tifel huwa professional driver diġà tal-go-karts, tella barra minn Malta nkajsu u training u hekk allura bejn telliqa oħra meta ma jkunux jistgħu jiċċessaw it-trek huwa tajjeb li jiġi hawnhekk jitrejnja hija simulator bħal go-kart qiegħed isuq ġol l-istess trakka li jsuqgħu Malta allura jkun qiegħed training minflok qiegħed ġo trakka stess. Għandu l-coach tiegħu tas-CRG stess, jgħalmu jagħtu ħtiebs barra minn Malta l-istess ħaġa kalmuhom kif iduru mal-kantunieri, race line, il-ħinijiet x'in jafsu l-gass, il-break. Hija teknika ħafna l-ħaġa, ġifieri kapaċi ħafna iktar minn it-tifel. Huwa post fejn jista' jiżvoga. Meta jmorru ġo trakku ma stess jgħidulek aħna nħossuna żvogajna flaxej jħossuhom tranquilli għax ineħħu l-istress tal-ġurnata, l-istress tal-iskola, kollox. Plus li huwa sport sabiħ għalihom li jitrejnjaw. It-tifel trabba ġol karozzi, allura għalih hija passjoni. Dan iċ-ċentru għalih huwa post fejn jista' jiżvoga jkunu. Għal dawk il-parents forsi li jibżaw jgħidulek għax it-tifel huwa perikolus. Hawnhekk m'hawnx periklu. Qegħdin protetti, ġobini, it-tfal jaraw x'iridu. Jekk ma jibdewx issa minn ta' żgħira xorta jibdew meta jkunu kbar, so ma jteżwelithom l-opportunitajiet kollha li tkun tista' tihom meta jkunu żgħar.
Jien ma' World Pro Racing naħdem bħala replay person u nsuq mat-tim ukoll. Main task jien normalment nagħmel nieħu ħsieb li l-computers kollha din jaħdmu, nieħu ħsieb li l-komunità għandna platform online li kollox qed immur sew anke nikkomunikaw ma' drivers u wara l-events nikteb l-artikli nippubblikawhom fuq il-website. Jien as such bdejt bħal kull student naqa' technical know-hows, imbagħad ovvjament through time bdejt nitgħallem kif ċertu pereżempju broadcasts, ċertu affarijiet, ċertu preparations li jsiru qabel dik regarding World Pro Racing, anke bħala sim racing. Bdejt jien bħala e-sport jiġifieri aktar fuq computer, mbagħad bdejt bil-mod nibni bħala steerings u hekk tracks tibda bil-mod kollox pass pass issa.
Senna was a god. No one could even dream to follow him.
I'm from a very humble background.
The role of women at that time were really difficult.
This is so dangerous. You are risking not only your life, but also my life.
World Pro Racing, where sim racing becomes real.
HyperX Open Series. This is race 5. We're going to be racing around the Spa-Francorchamps circuit. Joining me in the commentary booth is Nico Hillebrand. Hello, Nico.
Hello
How are
there.
you doing?
Yeah, good. I'm glad to be back for some more commentary for World Pro Racing. First time for the HyperX Open Series, so I'm looking forward to exciting races today. How are you?
I'm doing great. This is also my first time commentating over the HyperX series, so it should be a fun one.
Absolutely.
Last week we saw Harry Spears absolutely dominate in both races. What do you think? What are your opinions about today's race? Who do you think might show well?
Well, we have a lot of very interesting drivers on today's entry list. Of course, Tinko van der Velde already established himself as a very strong driver. You know, the entirety of the Sidemax team has done over the last couple of months. But of course, you know, we have a lot of recurring British karting drivers which have gotten quite fond of the World Pro Racing events. You know, Carly Atkins and, for example, Alex Johnston as well. But we also have someone who actually took part in last weekend's SRO Esports Endurance Series in Europe, Spa 24 Hours, for the Jota team nonetheless. So Ross McGregor from Zancho Simsport, he's going to be looking for a very strong performance today.
Yeah, it's exciting to have like people who are involved in other forms of esports and motorsports. It's very exciting. We also, I think, Luke Whitehead is racing as well. He's been very consistent and very fast in other races, so it'll be interesting to see what he can bring to the table this time around.
Yeah, absolutely. Luke Whitehead, also one of the guys, also actually in the SRO Esports series for quite a few rounds. And, you know, all around here, also quite establishing himself as a very strong driver, and also in the SimGrid, for example.
Yeah, definitely. May I ask your opinions on the track we're racing around? Obviously, Spa-Francorchamps, a very historic circuit. What do you think of it? Do you like it? Do you hate it?
I have to say, you know, if the Nürburgring wasn't my home, Spa would be number one. It's an absolutely fantastic track. 7 kilometers through the Ardennes forests. It goes up, it goes down. It's perfect, basically. You know, it's just a fantastic circuit to race around. And in GT3 machinery, you know, with 2 minutes, 18-second lap times, I think we've got a fantastic, template for a couple of fantastic races for this evening.
Definitely, definitely. I think my personal bias lies with Monza. There's something about I just like fast circuits, But yeah, this is another one of those. Obviously, some iconic corners: Rouge, Radion, Pouan, and all those. So it should be very, very fun to see these very talented drivers take on a very not difficult, but like a very technical, no, like a very challenging circuit. I suppose it's the best wording for that.
Absolutely.
So yes, we in the HyperX series there are obviously it's a more casual series than some of the others we race here on World Pro Racing, with prizes being given out. The prizes go to the top 3 of each championship. So it should be interesting to see. I mean, last week, Harry Spears won the championship. This time, maybe a new face, maybe not. Should be interesting to see who takes those top 3 spaces.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a quite fun dynamic in this as well. Each round of this is treated as its own sort of mini championship. So not only do you have to place well in the sprint race and then, you can take it easy for the feature race or the other way around, you have to place well in both races. And, so we don't have the same guys always dominating. The guys at World Pro Racing actually introduced a little bit of a handicap for guys who won the last round. P1 of the last round gets -3 points, P2 gets -2, and P3 gets -1 point. So some things that the drivers who are competing in this will have to think about if they placed well in the last event.
Definitely, you stole the question I was about to ask you. Well done. That's exactly it. It's not a case of if you're fast, you're going to win every single race. You have to be consistent and you have to be constantly performing at your best if you want to win the championship or the race every single time.
Yeah, not just that, but it's also only 15 minutes of qualifying. So around a normal circuit, with 1 minute 20, 1 minute 30 of a lap time, it's basically like, oh, I messed up a lap. I can quickly do another out lap, and that's all okay. But at Spa-Francorchamps, you have a long pit lane, then you get out. It's over 2 minutes, almost 2.5 minutes for an out lap. So you only realistically have like 3 or 4 shots for a proper hot lap, and then calculate traffic in because we have quite a lot of cars signed up for today.
And equally, they only get 50 minutes of practice as well. So they're going into qualifying with relatively little experience, obviously, today. And then the races with only slightly more. So it should be quite interesting to see how they manage to balance the, maybe not lack of experience, but like lack of warming up time with actual racecraft.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially, you know the circuit, of course, how Spa goes. Everyone knows how Spa goes that is remotely interested in racing. And, the circuit always stays the same. But the thing is, about the circuit, the conditions can always change. As we have it here, 38 degrees track temperature. That's boiling.
Yes, definitely. Should be interesting to see how they manage like the tire wear and the fuel consumption with quite a high track temperature.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only that, they also have to adjust, of course, brake temperatures for this. They have to adjust for higher brake cooling because it's also quite warm out there just in the air temperature, 29 degrees Celsius. And, that's all sort of smaller things. The more close you can run your brake cooling, the less brake cooling you can go for, the more straight line speed you have. And of course, that also goes into just generally the balance overall, how you can handle your car. So really, really difficult in these high temperatures to completely get along. At least for them, it is currently completely wind still. So we don't have monstrous winds of 11 kph from behind as they go up Radion, which we had actually in the SRO Esports series.
Oh, I'm sure they're very much enjoying the fact that there's no strong winds to spin their cars around.
Absolutely. And yeah, we already see Carly Atkins, Luke Whitehead, 2 of them already very, very fast around the circuit here today. 16.998, I'm guessing that would be a quali trim lap, but it's not unheard of that the Aston Martin can do these laps around here in race trim as well.
Yeah, I think, as we can see, the times are still there are very wide gaps. I assume those will close up as the qualifying and as the practice and the qualifying go on. But it should be interesting to see like which drivers can make the most out of the putt temperature and the specific car. Maybe which cars work more around Spa, which ones are maybe a bit slower.
Yeah, absolutely. But all the way down, it always comes down to if you can really get along with that car, how used to the car you are and how used to the track in said car you are. Tinko van der Velde here in the McLaren 720S, one of the stronger cars around here. And of course, we don't have any sort of penalty ballast for a custom BOP here. These cars are just as they come with the normal simulator. And the McLaren is quite strong around here, especially for quali pace.
that should give him and all the other McLaren drivers quite the advantage in that case. They might be able to make the most out of it where other cars might struggle.
Absolutely, but we see, especially in the entire top 19 basically at the moment, we see only, well, except for Dario Mangion, who's in the Lexus in 4th place right now, everyone is in either the Aston Martin, the McLaren, Ferrari or Porsche. Porsche normally not one of the top picks around this, but a couple of weeks ago Kunos actually released a patch to reduce the drag, so to give the Porsche less air resistance, so the Porsche now has well, a higher top speed compared to before, while keeping the downforce the same. So the Porsche definitely now a more worthy contender, so to say, as we have Oscar Saristo here actually in the BMW, also quite strong car around Spa-Francorchamps.
Definitely, and that extra straight line speed is going to help very well up, Rouge, Vazillon, and down the Kemmel Straight. It's a very high-speed circuit, so I assume they're going to love the extra top speed they've been given.
Absolutely. Not just that, though, but you can see the BMW, basically the biggest GT3 car that there is, soon going to be replaced with the M4 GT3, which somehow they made even larger. But, it's a long wheelbase that you really want around here. Not just for stability-wise, but generally, around high-speed corners, you really would prefer a longer wheelbase, and the BMW just brings you perfectly just that.
I assume the counter to that, though, is when it comes to actual racecraft, the smaller the car, maybe easier to get overtakes done, maybe a bit more nimble, probably lighter as well. So there's a toss-up there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's you really have to make compromises around here, not just for making the car a little bit more agile. With a smaller car, for example, the Audi, there's this very, very good piece of helicopter footage above the Nordschleife, comparing that the Audi is basically just half as big as the BMW from looking from above. You really have a more nimble car, but the BMW just brings a lot more stability, and despite its size, the engine power and it really propels the car forward, and despite its size, it doesn't actually weigh that much.
Oh, wow, okay. Specifics on car weight is not my forte, I have to be honest. But it is interesting, if you have a longer wheelbase, obviously a lot more stable through the corners, and especially in traction zones. I think it will be interesting to see how that balances. Smaller cars, if there's no real weight gain, you could see these cars have a massive advantage around here.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, a person that I just noticed just now, we have Jafari down in 23rd right now with the number 4, who is in the Bentley, and also Armel, who's in 20th with the number 69 in the Honda. So, interesting car choices here. The Honda, of course, for the European tracks, not the prime pick overall, due to the BOP for it not being that favorable and it's being generally the heaviest car. But, it can go quite quickly around Spa-Francorchamps, having had a BOP boost, so to say, in one of the last patches. So we'll see if Armel is able to propel it a little bit further up in the order.
Yeah, hopefully he can perform well and take that car to heights. As far as I can tell, he is the only Honda. So it will be interesting to see how well he performs against some of the other cars, which, as you've mentioned, seem to be a bit more comfortable around this circuit. You mentioned that Jafari is driving the Bentley. I believe in the last HyperX race, the Bentleys had performed quite well. So I don't know if you can maybe inform us a bit more, how they compare to different tracks, maybe what the Bentley's strengths are.
Bentley is very much a car that is for every condition, I think. The main thing that you have to overcome, really, in comparison to all other cars is, well, the Bentley is the only right-hand drive car, so British people won't have too much difficulty to adjust, since it's their, natural habitat, so to say, in a car. But, for everyone else, it's a little bit off-putting at first. And, of course, well, you just have to get used to that, to the measurements as well, for example. I mean, as we saw there just now, Chris Gooch taking Stavolo, it's a lot easier to judge right-handers with the curb, for example, simply because you can basically just drive onto the curb with the way you're sitting, but corners like here, like Blanchimont, getting to that inside curb, which you absolutely aren't allowed to touch, you really have to get used to that measurement a lot more. Otherwise, the Bentley is a fantastic newcomer car, because it's very, very easy to drive, has good controllability, and, of course, it has this very, very beloved nickname, the Boatley, which it earned by being very, very strong, actually, in the wet. And also another car that's quite strong in the wets, the Porsche, as natural for a rear-engine car.
Definitely. So in terms of the Bentley, the proverb that you might know is jack of all trades but master of none. Do you think that might be the Bentley's fault here? Maybe it's generally good at everything, but maybe doesn't excel in certain areas, whereas other cars might?
It's actually, you've got that pretty much hit the nail on the head there. The Bentley is pretty much just that. It doesn't have the best straight line speed. That would probably go to either the Aston Martin or the BMW here. Doesn't have the best cornering speed. I think that would, at the moment, go to either the Ferrari, the McLaren, or the Porsche. And, you know, like for full controllability with a dialed-in setup, I'd say the Honda takes prime here. But the Bentley is always just very, very close behind, except for straight line speed, where it's a little bit slower than most other cars. But, you know, that can be fixed by having just a good run through a Rouge Radiant and having a car that's just always very controllable.
Yeah, definitely. You know, I think when it comes to, you think of cars and straight line speed, obviously, going historically, you'd think Ferrari might have the jump on there. How do you think the Ferraris are going to perform in this race?
The Ferrari could perform very, very well. The 488 Evo is a very formidable car in Assetto Corsa Competizione, and especially around Spa. They actually won the 24 Hours of Spa recently, and they've been dominating with David Tonizza the European Sprint Series. So I definitely think that the Ferrari is a force to be reckoned with.
It'll be interesting to see how they perform. Currently, the highest placed Ferrari is Bosch in 7th, so hopefully we can see the others maybe jump up the order, maybe not, we'll see. Tinko van der Velde, though, is currently setting the pace with a 2:16.9. We mentioned that, not too far ahead of the, I think it was another 2:16 set by Atkins earlier. Do you expect those times to drop further, or is this kind of where we're going to hang for the rest of the session?
Yeah, I think that we're going to go down a little bit if the guys will actually want to put their cards on the table, you know? It's all about keeping your aces up your sleeve up until the last moment before qualifying, because obviously you don't want to show your proper pace yet. I mean, overall, it's very, very difficult to judge when, of course, you want to get out your quali pace, simply because the others will know who to watch out for and, you know, maybe just throw a little bit of a curveball and, you know, not quite move as quickly out of the way in qualifying, of course. Now, obviously not blocking and stuff, but, you know, just give that, you know, bit of extra difficulty, you know, because, of course, everyone knows, you know, we have to be as far in front as possible in qualifying to just have the best possible starting position.
Definitely, and also, you know, traffic around the circuit can sometimes be difficult, especially in the second and third sectors. So it might be interesting to see how that plays a part. If you wait for the end of the session to set your fastest time, you might get caught out by that.
Yeah, absolutely. And even in Sector 1, you know, through Rouge and Radiant, if you have your... Normally you just tune your car completely stable over the crest by yourself. With dirty air, it's always very, very difficult. Of course, these cars aren't F1 level of dirty air where you lose 50% of your downforce, but still, the F1 cars produce... I think around at Silverstone they had Lewis Hamilton produce 3.5 tons of downforce. These cars, if you're very, very aggressive on the setup, you produce around 700-800 kilos, and you need every single one of those kilos to keep you pinned to the road. And behind another car, you still lose at least 300 or 400 kilos, depending on the speed, of course.
Wow, okay, that's... talking about losing 300-400 kilos, that's almost probably around half the downforce they generate, so it will be interesting. Like saying, up the very fast high-speed corners like a Rouge and Radiant, how much that causes an effect. Maybe not through qualifying, but especially in the race, if they're trying to make an overtake, it could really affect their run down the Kemmel Straight.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, it all depends on the car as well, you know, how the downforce is generated. For example, we have the Aston Martin here with that humongous rear diffuser. The Ferrari is another prime example of that, or the McLaren as well. If a lot of downforce is generated over the underbody of the car, you're not as prone to dirty air as, for example, a car that tries to get it with, you know, these big flick wings on the front end, like, for example, the Porsche, or, you know, just trying to rely on a very, very big rear wing. Like, the most prominent example for me would be the old Nissan from 2015 that is so adorably called Godzilla. it's all about how the car is set up, of course, but all about how the car generates the downforce, because the splitter, of course, loses a lot of the downforce if the car bottoms out too much, which is definitely the case up Rouge and Radion. So you really have to be careful how you set up your car, that it's just perfectly balanced up that entire road, because it's very, very easy that the car just gets into a hopping motion, so to say, and, well, behind another car, that's definitely not what you want to have.
No, of course not. It'll be interesting to see how the drivers manage that, and how they maybe wait to start their laps or create a gap between themselves and the driver around them to try and minimize their dead air effect.
Yeah, absolutely. And not just that, though. If you have a car that handles a Rouge quite well in dirty air, you have the slipstream from La Source down to Rouge and Radion, and then up over the crest, you are still in slipstream. You get such a slingshot in comparison to just being by yourself, because of course you have less downforce pressing you into the ground. So you just have a lot less resistance as well through that entire bit. You have a lot less air resistance as well from the car in front of you, so you get a huge slingshot up the camo straight into Lecombe. So all you have to do is nail your braking point at the end after you got alongside, and well, then just try to keep it alongside and make the overtake. As we see, one of the cars that is actually a prime example of having that possibility, the Ferrari of Samir Foch. Also actually a quite bigger streamer on Twitch, normally I think for World of Tanks or something, but a couple months ago he started appearing in these races, and we've grown quite fond of him around here, with a very nice team name as well.
Yeah, you were talking about the camels, like the run from La Source down to the Camel Straight, obviously through Rouge and Radion. I think that would be an excellent overtaking opportunity during the races. What's your read on that?
Yeah, absolutely, but it's a very difficult thing to make the pass already work, because you have to think, especially at the start. We're starting, of course, on the down the hill route, actually exactly here, as we see Charlie Kent take this way down here. We start just on the run down here, just like the 24-hour race does. So you get up Eau Rouge, Radion as the first corners, and the entire pack is close together. So we have a lot of people close together. You have, of course, a lot of braking as well. If you get the run clean here, then you can gain quite a few positions. But, of course, due to the cars all being close together, you will have very easily 3 or 4 wide situations, and you have to be very careful with that. And even later on in the race, you have to place your car very, very well. You have to know your car's grip very well. And you have to count on the other drivers also being aware of their surroundings, being aware of you being next to them.
Yeah, the drivers, especially the ones towards the front, are going to want to be very careful with Rouge and Radion as the first corners. We've seen in multiple races and multiple motorsports, they are very dangerous corners to go side by side up. So it should be, they're going to want to be very careful to not get any damage or lose many positions.
Absolutely, and especially with the damage model in Assetto Corsa Competizione, highly complex, of course. Not just bodywork, which can give you a lot of disadvantages, plus suspension damage, of course, as well. But even a couple smaller amounts of bodywork damage, it's all about how you get the damage. Best example I can think of is, well, myself having also taken part in the 24 Hours of Spa last weekend for the SRO Endurance Esports Series. I had 5 seconds damage with the Honda at the start of the race. In my first stint, I was able to do 219 lows, 218 highs, and that was basically the max I could do, even by myself in completely clean air. Later on in the night, my teammate Johannes Weiss, before having PC trouble, which forced us to retire, he had a 20-second damage crash up Radion, and he could do the same lap time, still low 18s. So it's all about how the car absorbs the damage, simply because, for me, for example, it was front end and rear end damage, so damage to the splitter and diffuser, which generates a lot of the downforce. If you hit the side panel like that, it's very less likely that it's actually going to do a lot of harm to your car, like just the generation of downforce. So it's really all about how you hit other cars, and of course, preferably not at all.
Fair enough, yes. We'll tell the drivers that, make sure to hit the other cars correctly, so they don't get any damage. We release a little guide, you want to slide into them just enough to take them off the road and you get no damage, and then you keep on.
Yeah, but of course you have to watch out, because We have very, very watchful eyes, of course, in the form of Adrian Figallo and George Muscat, both FIA-accredited stewards, who will watch over both of our races here. 90 minutes of racing action overall in one sprint race of 30 minutes and a 60-minute feature race. There's a lot of time to get a penalty, not just a time penalty of maybe 5 or 10 seconds or 15 or 20 seconds, for example, if you want to collect it all. But a drive-through penalty here is very, very hurtful, costing you around 50 to 60 to 70 seconds.
Wow, okay. I do believe drive-through penalties are often given out for corner cutting as well, so those drivers are going to be very careful around track limits.
Absolutely, and especially side-by-side racing and all that, you have to be so careful, of course, going off track and potentially just overshooting a little bit.
Yes, I believe if I'm not mistaken, the drivers get 3 warnings, and then on the 4th corner cutting infringement, they get a penalty. So they're going to...
Yeah, absolutely correct.
It is not a lot of leeway there, especially these cars, obviously no one's perfect, you're going to make mistakes, you're going to run slightly wide. So they have to be very careful to be as precise as possible throughout most of the race.
Absolutely, and the big difficulty here is, of course, as well, if you are running too wide, for example, if you go wide at Lucum at the entry, and then try to rejoin at Malmedy at full speed, it could be that, don't just get 1 warning, but also 2 or 3 warnings in one go, simply because there's a couple of different triggers for the cut track penalty. And of course, that is actually the warning given to you when you rejoin the circuit. That's all calculated by your relative speed to the normal delta that you set at the start of the race. So if you're just way too fast, for example, coming back onto the track compared to that first initial delta, which of course adjusts itself a little bit over time, then you will get these warnings, and of course, quite a lot threatening closer to that penalty.
Okay, well, I actually didn't know that about the delta, so thank you for informing us.
Yeah, you're welcome. Of course, always a little bit of knowledge that you pick up by racing yourself, and that you can then give to the viewers at home, which are maybe wondering a little bit. Well, he just cut once there. Why is that happening the way it is?
Definitely, that's why it's good to have someone who actually races in esports. That you have that insider knowledge that can help us, the people who aren't as informed, let's say, like myself.
Always happy to.
Okay. If you are to look at the leaderboard slightly, those times are slightly dropping. Atkins still back on top, with Van der Velde not too far behind, only a couple of tenths. They seem quite close for now.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I know anything about Tinker van der Velde, he's not a guy to let go. So in qualifying, I think we can definitely expect these times to drop down a little bit further. So it will definitely be something to look forward to here.
Definitely, obviously cars are always going to push harder, they're always going to try and go as fast as they can. So I wonder how maybe competitive these times will be at the end of qualifying.
Yeah, and of course it's also depending. Right now we have basically the hottest temperatures we can have for the virtual progression of the day, 2:35 p.m. here, so the sun is shining from directly above, no shade whatsoever from all the trees in the Ardennes forest around here. So we basically have the hottest we can probably get around here, and quite honestly, I think the hottest that I've seen overall in Assetto Corsa Competizione around Spa-Francorchamps was these 38 degrees, maybe 39 degrees track temperatures. And of course, the tires will also be greatly affected over the stint. Maybe not in the sprint race so much, but in the 60-minute race, these tires towards the end, they will definitely see a lot of decrease in pace.
For sure. We have that 10-minute pit window during the middle of the race, which might help them a little bit, but obviously still 30 minutes on the same set of tires is going to be very, very difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. So they will have to still look at tire conservation, and well, also to try not get spun around, because flat spots in these tires and these Pirelli tires, they're very, very evil. And of course, tire tearing, running more aggressive, more hot lap setups, tire tearing can factor into that quite a lot as well.
For sure, and obviously you never want to spin your car, you never want to damage your tires. But in the case that you do, it's really it's going to affect how much you can get back into it, how much you can recover if you've if you've spun kind of like a half spin, maybe didn't spin your tires too much, you might get away with it. But if you've really wrecked them, it's going to make your life so much harder.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's just really what you have to watch out for in this situation, of course. You know, if you're just overdriving the car on the tires a little bit too much, you know, if you're just a driver who prefers the handling of a car just slightly drifting around the corner. Because certain cars, you know, you have so many setup possibilities with traction control, with how the car leans into the tire through anti-roll bars and everything. I could go
Well,
on
I do
for
believe we've lost
hours how
Nico
to
there
gain
for a
time.
second. But
Hello?
practice has about to come to an end with Akins on top ahead of Tinko van der Velde and Riley. Quite competitive times there. 2:16, maybe less than a second between the top three, and less than 2/10 between the top two. So it should be very interesting to see how how these times rack up in the race.
Hello?
And in qualifying, of course. Luke Whitehead is in fourth, which is quite a good showing for him. He should be hoping to maybe match that or even increase it during qualifying. I guess we currently watch Dimitri Slow run around his, I assume, final lap in a very nice pink-colored car, which is my one claim to the understanding.
Can you hear me, Simon? I suppose not, so I think a little bit of a weird mix-up here. But yeah, basically, as he said, coming to the end of free practice now, soon going into qualifying, and yeah, I hope we can solve the technical difficulties as quickly as possible.
I can hear you, so hopefully
there we are.
Hopefully they are fixed slightly.
Okay, perfect.
The joys of different countries and different things.
Absolutely.
I am now joined by my dear friend Davinia here in the World Pro Racing studio. Hello, how are you doing?
Now is the first international race that I am commenting and also taking part in this commentary between you two guys. I would like to mention the Maltese racers. We have four. There is Rizzo, Muscat, Ebeyer, and Manjon. I would like to wish them the best of luck throughout the whole race. That's what I think, that Maltese racers are capable enough as much as the international ones are, and I hope that they will give themselves all the best that they can for this race.
Definitely. And, you know, obviously we're kind of biased, just a little bit, as we, you know, are Maltese, we are currently here. But interestingly, David Rizzo is actually racing in our sim rigs right here in the next room over. Obviously, I can't see him at the moment, but I assume he's doing well.
Yes, Andrea Rizzo is in our studio right now because he doesn't have a sim rig at home, so he has to practice over here and also join this competition from our studios. But I hope that he is putting all his concentration in the race, and hopefully he does well at his personal best, I suppose.
He has performed well in the past, like in other races and other championships. He's done well. Maybe not always like right at the front of the field, but he's been consistently above like other drivers who don't maybe not have as much practice like him. So it should be interesting. He does well with maybe less practice that he has.
Yeah, I mean, he gives his best, and that's all you can do eventually after all the training that you do. Work also, because these are not full-time racers, so it's something part-time that they do just for to have fun and also their professional life.
Definitely, and you know, it says a lot that he can maybe not have as much practice, but still kind of make life difficult for the big boys that practice all the time. As we now cut back to the qualifying session, drivers start rate just starting to flying laps. We see a few drivers out here. Nico, if I had to ask you maybe who your money's on for a good qualifying performance, what would you say?
Oh, that's a difficult one. We have obviously Luke Whitehead, we have Tinko van der Velde. Sheldon Scott Muscat shows that he's never to be left out, really, you know. Best example of that was during last week's multinational championship. But also Callie Atkins, Steve Johnston, Samuel Foch, also quite good from time to time. And Yeah, it's just really, really difficult in such a large pool of drivers to shout out, if this single guy has a good shot. It's all about so many factors coming into this. We have to look at temperature, of course. We have to look at how they get with clean air. And yeah, it's all about who gets the package tightly sealed together.
Definitely, and I agree with you. If we're going based on consistency in other races, I think Luke Whitehead, maybe Tinker Van der Velde have a great shot to get some good points here.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Currently following Dean Riley. What can you tell us about him as a racer? Maybe do you know some more insights about like what he likes, where his talents lie?
Yeah, a racer from England as well, if I remember correctly, because he's driving for the SimSport Racing team. Very, very keen on the Aston Martin, so he's holding the British flag very high in these races, and obviously, doing a very good job with it as well. In the Duo Series, he actually got a win in it, if I remember correctly as well. So yeah, Dean Riley, quite fast driver, and knowing how to use this Aston Martin, and especially around Spa, Aston Martin, a very, very strong car. So it's going to be quite interesting to see if you can put this lap perfectly together. Very, very clean line, far on the outside, gets perfectly on the apex and takes a lot of room on the outside as well to carry a lot of momentum through Blanchimont. Late on the brakes now into the chicane, and especially in the chicane you can lose a lot of time, but he's clean through there. Let's see what his first banker lap is then.
I believe
2:17.4.
2:17.
But didn't get valid. So that's the next part.
We do see Tingo Van der Velde, though, go top of the list for now. 2:16.8. And that's also been discounted for, I assume, track limits. I think.
No, just moved down a little bit.
Oh, my mistake.
Because of other drivers. So Tinker Van der Velde luckily gets his first lap in clean. Carly Atkins, however, also unclean, so maybe slowing down a little bit towards the end of the lap to get better swing out of the last chicane. And yeah, now going for his next attempt, but of course he's also giving draft to the Aston Martin right behind him, so that's always something that you have to just calculate in as well. Do I want to go on the fast lap with that guy right on my tail, or do I maybe want to just wait and, get some slipstream in front of him first?
Definitely. How much pressure is it having a car maybe only a second or two behind you when you're trying to do a fast lap?
With a second, it's still not too bad. You have a bit of distance behind you, but half a second, three, four tenths, then it gets a little bit squeezy because you see in the rearview mirror or in the rear screen, because a lot of these cars obviously have these cameras in the back of their car nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
You see how close they are getting on the brakes. That gap from like 10, 20 meters shrinks down to, well, 5 to 2 meters if you miss your braking point or if you just make a small mistake. And it gets quite nerve-wracking there. Because we also had a bit of a yellow flag situation there out of Malmedy, so maybe coming together from two cars there.
Could be, yes. Unfortunately, we haven't seen what happened, but hopefully all the drivers are okay. Hopefully they can all continue to set fast laps. As we currently follow Sheldon Scott Muscat. You mentioned that he's another very consistent driver. He can consistently perform well. So it should be interesting to see what he does, obviously driving a Porsche. Reminds me of the Gulf livery Porsche that McLaren ran in the F1 Monaco race. And I don't think it's meant to remind me of that.
Well, I mean, it is the Gulf livery Porsche for GPX Racing, with Gulf actually being the main sponsor for that livery, so...
Oh, that'll be why. I am an moron. I do apologize. It is a gorgeous, gorgeous livery.
I mean, speaking of Gulf liveries, I think Oscar Saristo actually in the BMW was running a livery, quite literally saying, we have Gulf at home racing. So, quite a couple little pokes there, giving towards the custom livery editor that you have in this simulator. And also I'm just seeing that Oscar Saristo in the BMW isn't alone. He's joined by Gergely Pinchabo, who's of course also what do you call it? A regular here at World Pro Racing. There we are.
Yes, and that's another driver, I think he has very clearly has talent, very clearly is a very fast driver. It will be interesting to see how he can maybe shake up the order a little, how far he can get up. As we see a car stopped on track, returning to the pit stops.
Yeah, of course. You don't have to do the entire outlap here. This is the one big advantage, well, one of the bigger advantages of sim racing compared to real racing. You don't have to do the entire in-lap. You can just reset. Of course, some leagues also opt to, keep it realistic and you have to return to the pits. But yeah, World Pro Racing, we just focus on the sim racing aspect, not on the full, pretend race car thing. The other big advantage, of course, is if you bin it here, you don't have to pay a bill of, well, optional from 20,000 to 200,000 euros of damage.
Yeah, it's always nice to be able to, make a mistake, throw your car into a wall, and then just not return to the pits as if nothing happened. Obviously,
Yeah, absolutely.
In the race, you get damage, you lose places, and you're going to make your race a lot harder. But for now, don't live.
Yeah,
No
absolutely.
Yeah, maybe the big bosses might be slightly disappointed, but other than that, you'll be fine.
I mean, of course, it still costs time, and if you're on a fast lap and you throw it away, it's still, of course, rather not infuriating. That's a bit of an extreme word, but frustrating. That's the word.
Definitely.
But at least you don't have to pay that huge repair bill. And well, my biggest repair bill in racing so far was 250 euros for a broken windscreen from a piece of gravel that was flung in there. But that already had me enough. So
that is a delightful anecdote. Thank you so much. 250 from a piece of gravel that broke a windshield. Amazing.
It's the small things that hurt you.
I imagine that is. I can't imagine receiving the news like just receiving a bill for 250 from a piece of gravel. Like, I imagine that's quite upsetting.
Yeah, absolutely. But luckily, gravel being flung into windshields and stuff here isn't simulated. It's not something that can come up into the pit stop repair time as well. But talking about repair bills and stuff is so much negativity. Let's focus on this beautiful so far lap from Tinko van der Velde, completely clean. No bigger bumps or anything, and just keeping it completely straight down the Carroll Straight. Late on the brakes now into Lecombe, and Ferrari's taking a bit of a longer route there, a bit of a wiggle there, a bit of a correction from Van der Velde. As he now heads through Malmedy, again a little bit of a correction, but still seemingly quite fast so far. We can't see a delta for him, sadly, but now going through Brussels, still a very, very calm car. And
yeah,
so
he seems...
Oh, sorry.
Another one of the joys of online communication. But he does seem to have full control of his car. He seems to be placing it right on every apex, right where he needs to be. It could be a very strong lap for him.
Yeah, a little bit right now into the first apex of Pouan though, or double gauche as it's normally called. But Pouan is just, it rolls so much easier off the tongue. Second gear now into the Fania chicane. Third gear early on to not get as much understeer and just barely there. That should still be legal. Perfect line now through Campus and now into Stavropol Paul Frère. Very, very nicely done as well. Kept it completely pinned there, and you can see he just has so much experience around the circuit. Very nice to see how calm this car is for 90% of the lap as well. Just a few little corrections that you have to make sure that the car stays within the reins. And actually, he's lifting off a little bit, so I think maybe a little bit too wide after all at the funniest chicane.
It could be. It did look like maybe there was a time he crossed the white line. Unfortunately, he was on a very good lap, but he has some time to go for another round, so we assume he'll do another lap. He's currently leading, I believe. So it should be interesting to see if he can keep that up, or if one of the other drivers can maybe snatch that top spot from him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, still leading by 2/10. It is very, very short, of course. It's less than the blink of an eye, actually, separating Carly Atkins and Tinko van der Velde. But, so difficult, of course, to just get that last gap in. But I think Carly Atkins, Dean Riley, Samir Foch, they're all just really raring to go and try to beat his lap time. And these 2/10 can be gone faster than you'd think. But behind that, of course, bigger gap as well. That's quite a bit of confidence. And, of course, also a lot of stress being put on the rest of the competition by Tinko van der Velde. Because he knows, if I have a larger gap towards the rest of the field, these guys will think, how can I bridge that gap into the race? And if you're under a lot of pressure, of course, you are more likely to make mistakes.
Definitely. And we see in P3, David Riley, you mentioned, has a bit more of a slightly larger gap behind Akins than Van der Velde. How hard is it to make up 7/10 of a second around this track?
It depends on how willing you are to risk it, really. I mean, time is very, very short now, so you have nothing to lose. You can just try to send it as much as possible. But, how well the setup is actually adjusted to pumping out these hot laps, especially in these hot conditions, it's so, so difficult to get these 2:16s in for qualifying. And even more difficult 2:15s in a lot cooler conditions, of course. So I don't think we'll see any of those lap times. But yeah, these guys will really have to get it on the note perfect, late as possible, and then really, really gosh down quick through these corners as well, and just take as much momentum with them as possible. Now we have Samir Foch once again. Coming quite clean so far, but maybe not the lap times he was hoping for so far. Maybe wants to get a little bit quicker still. Fourth place, of course, so very, very decent position in qualifying, but 9/10 off still, so there's still room for improvement, and I think he knows that as well. Can't quite see if he's on his out lap right now, or maybe already on the timed lap. But either way, he's trying to get as much momentum here as possible, of course. And, of course, trying to get as much time now into his last run as possible. Of course, now a couple of seconds left in the session. If he crosses the line before that, he can do that last lap. I think he's going to be the last one to be able to attempt a lap.
It does look like it, yeah.
Now. Oh yeah, and actually he's getting a lap in as well. 2:17.2. 4/10 improvement, gets himself in front of Dean Riley, and Riley unable to counter now because he's in the pit lane.
Yeah, so Riley doesn't seem like he's going to be improving anything. And Foch has another lap to go if he takes it, so qualifying has now ended, so we're going to be seeing drivers' last laps.
Absolutely, and of course it's going to be quite difficult now as well. Muscat done with his qualifying, Whitehead done with his qualifying, Lesniak now as well, Van John Staristo, everyone is either getting back to the pits or finishing their laps now. Number 71, that's Armel in the Bentley. I think actually he changed over to the Bentley since practice. Maybe a bit more comfortable in that.
Could be, yeah. As we see, Tinko van der Velde is also in the pit stop, so he's not going to be improving on that time. That is the time that the other drivers need to beat. Akins and as we see, spin.
So easy to do as well. Speaker's corner, so very difficult to get the car turn in there without error.
Definitely, and obviously, final qualifying lap, pushing very hard. Probably just pushed a bit too much and lost the rear end. So that is the end of his. And Akins, so unless some of the other drivers further back can make some massive improvements, it does seem like Tinker van der Velde might be might take pole position.
Yeah, absolutely. Pavel Dominiak, also one of actually the very last car now to come around the corners. Let's see if he's able to improve in that Porsche. And just as we switched away.
Unfortunately, we will never know.
We'll see at the race start, I think.
Yeah. If he's accidentally on pole and everything we're about to say is completely meaningless, oops, etc. Lavinia, welcome back. What did you think of that qualifying session? Tinkerville developed an amazing pole position, probably, but who knows? We assume he's on pole for now, given what we know.
Yeah.
What do you think of his chances in the race?
I think being in pole position gives him a very fair chance in winning the race. However, you can't justify that the other racers won't do well as well, because obviously everything can change, and in the last minute someone can overtake someone else. So it's very competitive also between the others.
Definitely, and we were talking earlier about how difficult the first corner up our Origin Radion can be, and then lead down the Camel Straight is an incredible overtaking opportunity. So Akins has been very pacey all day. So has the third and fourth place cars, I think. Bosch. Oh, for I don't. I do apologize. I do not know how to pronounce his name. I believe Foch is how you pronounce it. He's in third place. He is also a very good shout for maybe like getting a good start and overtaking and challenging the top two.
Yeah, yeah. I think if they persist their pace, they would definitely overtake each other, and it would be a definitely close win for those top three.
And they're also, maybe I don't want to say wild cards because we've seen the half pace, but Luke Whitehead is, I believe, sixth or seventh. I believe he qualified. He has pace. He has an incredible racecraft. So I wouldn't count him out in case there's an accident or something going wrong at the front. He could very easily make up places and take the win or some good points.
Yes, definitely. I think that all the racers have a chance to win. Unfortunately, there aren't any women in the race. That's why I think that we are supposed to encourage more females to participate in esports and sim racing as well. So right now we're going for a clip, Raisa's clip, and her journey in sim racing.
Hello, my name is Raiza Absaila, and today was my first time training at World Pro Racing. My experience was really good. Not saying that I didn't have any mistakes, but after all, we need to learn from them. I really wish that I will see more women in this industry, because after all, women and men are both equal. Women are also capable to do this type of sport. Thank you.
Follow Race's journey getting into sim racing and motorsport by following us on our social media at World Pro Racing, where sim racing becomes real.
We just saw Raisa's journey. She's at the start of building up her career in sim racing. And what did you think, Simon?
I think it's incredibly inspirational. Motorsport, unfortunately, has always been a very male-dominated industry, so it's
Definitely
so nice to see these women, especially young women, like taking up the mantle and wanting to push themselves into it.
Yeah, I think her perseverance and wanting to continue and strengthening her success in the sport gives me real confidence in future young girls who would like to participate in the sport. And also, if there are any young girls who would like to try out racing, sim racing, they are also welcome to join us and try out.
Definitely. Nico, I will ask you as well while you are here in this, well, not in the studio, but here virtually. What do you think of encouraging more women into racing and motorsport?
Absolutely welcome it. I think the notion that it's male dominated and that it should stay that way is rather silly. Overall, we've had so many very good drivers already. Lella Lombardi, for example, in Formula One. We recently passed Sabine Schmitz, who made, I think, 70 passes in one lap on the Nordschleife in the VLN series. Or, Michel Mouton, who, one of the greatest rally drivers of all time, Walter Röhrl, still insists that she should have won one of the Grand Prix, one of the Group B, that's the word, rally seasons in the 80s. So it's really fantastic how certain women already excel in motor racing, and it only increases with the chances, of course, with the W series and a lot of just women just coming into normal series as well. But sim racing, I think there are still not too many women here, so I very much welcome it that we are getting more and more of them into this field here, especially at World Pro Racing.
But we now have to cut back to the first race, our sprint race, with a Tinker van der Velde on pole ahead of Jack Aikens, as I believe this is their warm-up lap, rather than the actual race start. They'll be warming, maybe not a full lap, they'll be warming up to the grid and then going from there. So, as we see, Dominic did not, in fact, take pole position. He is still in 5th place. So yeah, should be interesting to see what he can do, as well as everyone else in the top, maybe 5 or 6 off the start.
Absolutely. Now we are slowly coming down to the line. Everyone's now taking their positions. Everyone's at 70 kilometers an hour or around that pace, of course, as close as possible, and it goes green.
And the race is a go. Tinker van der Velde and Aikens side by side up a Rouge into Radion. Tinker van der Velde just keeping his lead as the rest of the cars kind of battle for track position further behind. Aiken's following Tinker Vanderbilt down to the Chemo Straight. Is he going to make an attack towards the end of it, into the chicane? He is alongside. He could do it. He could try around the outside. It's risky, but very doable. But no, he's a bit too far back. And so far, many of the cars holding position. There's a little bit of chaos further back. One car cutting the chicane slightly.
Yeah, that was one of the BMWs and actually resetting.
They
so
come down towards the next corner. Tinker Vanderbilt still holding his lead up the inside.
And I think we just have another couple of issues with the technology here.
Corner down towards Puan.
Oh, there we are.
The top 5, Nico, are kind of very much holding their position so far. I believe Luke Whitehead is the only person to make up a position so far. What do you think of the start?
Yeah, very good start from Whitehead. Everyone else was able to defend their positions where they were, basically. But Dominiak got completely dropped at the start. Maybe missed the timing, maybe had a bad run through radio, but Stremer, Amel and Whitehead all got past him, and Whitehead now obviously scratching for the top, for the 4th place already of Riley. So we have Lukas Ziege here coming through Stavelo now, right on the tail of Dominiak, who we mentioned already dropped down a little bit, and right behind that we have Charlie Kent, number 3 Aston Martin, who is also right over the back of him. Quite close together through Blanchimont now, looking for the outside. Not quite decisive to make a move, and Charlie Kent tries to make the best of it as well. There's contact between the 3 cars, and also Amel missing a little bit of the entire chicane, has to go a little bit slower, and loses quite a few positions there.
Yes, quite a chaotic final corner, well, penultimate corner there. I do apologize about some mild technical difficulties. I don't know if I cut out at any point.
Yeah, it's all okay. You know, sometimes happens, even happens to the best of us, so nothing too bad here. Samir Foch stays in 3rd place right now. Wonderful, actually, that we have the top 3 with 3 different manufacturers. But right behind that, the Aston Martin group from P4 to P6, Riley, Whitehead and Stremer, all 3 of them, of course, hungry to improve their position as well.
Definitely, and you know, talking about the different manufacturers, Amel up there in 7th representing the Bentleys. Should be interesting to see, maybe he can think, if he can challenge it anyway. But so far, Tinker Vanderbilt holding his lead so ahead of Aikens and Foch.
Absolutely, and of course, in this short sprint race, one of the downsides that the McLaren has actually, a little bit of more technical trivia, double-edged sword of that qualifying map, that they can run for sprint races, but for 60 minutes it gets a little bit tight with fuel for some tracks. So Van der Velde may be a bit more attackable in the feature race than here, but of course right now he has maximum power, all the fuel in the world to just carry through this 30-minute race, and only has to defend against Carly Actons and of course Samir Foch and Dean Riley right behind him.
It will be interesting to see how that fuel management affects him in the 2nd race. There's obviously double the length, double the management here, really, in some cases.
Absolutely. And even though it's a turbocharged engine, even though it normally uses less fuel than naturally aspirated engines, well, the top 7 are all turbocharged engines, so he's not really getting any considerable advantage there.
Fair enough. As you see, like, if we talk about the lap time, the gaps between the cars so far, the top 5 are separated by around 7/10, and then there's a bit of a larger gap back to 6th place. How do you think that's going to affect like the rest of the race and the way they battle? And ooh, contact. There. I believe it was Amel who got almost spun around, but he managed to keep his position as Ziege.
Ziege.
Ziege. Thank you very much. I apologize for names. I am Maltese.
All okay. But yeah, Ziege just trying to hold in a bit too much there. Maybe Amel, you know, slamming the door a bit hard. Either way, no position gain, so I think that'll be classed as a racing incident by our stewards. But either way, Dominiak was able to get through that chaos, and the other 2 Porsches, Ziege and Muscat, both really struggling to stay within the track limits there. But Ziege now pulling out of the slipstream, gets alongside of Dominiak, And right behind that, Muscat is thinking, well, we'll have a look how this plays out. Maybe I can gain a position as well. It actually looks very, very threatening towards Dominiac there. Right behind that, of course, Charlie Kent, and let's have a look. That's Slow right behind him. Dimitri Slow, who's actually approaching very fast instead of his name for that group as well.
Definitely, this is a massive pack of cars racing very, very close together. And little mistakes, you try and move, you make slight contact. It's kind of expected, especially in these cars that can take some mild contact. It'll be interesting to see how their racing continues and how aggressive they become as the time goes on. As a move is being taken, Sheldon Muscat being overtaken by Kent, maybe? Ooh, some contact.
Not quite.
Very wide. Kind of strange.
A bit of contact under the brakes. You always have to, when you're defending, of course, it's very, very difficult. You want to take the corner as wide as possible on the outside.
Definitely.
And I think Kent there, I don't know if it was maybe, Kent closing already in a little bit too much, obviously wanting to turn in for the corner. Or if it was Muscat maybe closing to the left side a little bit too much, wanting to take too much of a racing line.
It could be, and maybe it was slightly a bit of a late move, so it could very easily be that Sheldon was completely focused on the corner and maybe didn't notice that Kent was coming around his outside.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very difficult, of course, to judge here. That's why we have our FIA credited stewards.
Yes.
And
so
actually, we had a replay. Oh, actually, that must have been what's happened to Chris Cooch. Just noticed that his car was parked in the pit lane. Let's see, upper radio, and no!
That is a hard hit.
Tried to get around the outside there. I think of was it that far back? I think that might have been either Mangion or Rizzo, maybe even Neuwirth. Not quite able to see who it was, but either way, tried to turn in a little bit too late. Of course, he gets into the marbles there, and you don't have any grip there whatsoever.
It was a hard hit. That's going to do a lot of damage. Unfortunately for him, possibly ruined his sprint race.
Yeah, completely led to DNF there. Probably wouldn't be able to make it back to the pits even with that damage. Yeah, of course, straight on hit. That's so difficult. 200 kilometers now straight into the tire wall. And there's the next one.
Another driver. Ooh, and a terrible rejoin. Takes out another car. Jafari, not the best rejoin in the world. Unfortunately, has taken another car. I'm not sure who it is.
I think mainly he got flung back onto the track, but now that is actually a little bit more dangerous, and
another car
just caused a chain reaction. Yeah,
he has damage. I doubt he's doing this on purpose. He has damage. Obviously, very difficult car to control.
Yeah, but at this point, Jafari should just pull over normally.
Yeah.
And of course, that BMW, I think that was Gerli Kunsabo, very, very unhappy with Jafari. Drives past now after having just lost a couple of positions, and the stewards will have a look at that. Incident car number 3 on 489. So there was contact between Kent and Dominiac. So 5-second penalty to 3. Kent was found guilty at that, and actually I think that happened off screen to us.
All right. Well, we see Sheldon Muscat going up against Kent again. This time around the outside, and again they make contact. And this time he's almost spun. Sheldon's into the barrier. Kent has spun. These two seem to like hitting each other today, apparently. Let's see if
Very difficult, of course, yeah.
Yeah, Sheldon Muscat having a nice stroll across the grass, probably trying to get back to the pits as soon as he can. Kent, I don't know if he's going to be able... Well, where he's going to recover to. Currently in 13th. Let's assume he's going to drop quite quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Kent, of course, spun around, and actually we had another spin there just at the edge of the screen. I think that was Wojciech getting not as much, not as much traction as you thought, and there's the big one there!
He hits another car as well.
I think that may have been just completely putting Slow into the wall. Amel just losing the rear end over the crest. So dangerous.
And in the meantime, I believe Ziege makes up a... Oh no, it was Dominic who makes up a position on Ziege. I apologize. So yeah, Dominic there making full use of the accident in front of him to gain a position.
Got into the 10 minutes into the race section, and everyone sort of got, a little bit trigger happy with trying to overtake. Armel not too damaged from his crashes. Also now the pit window open for this short little sprint race. Probably going to be open for about, 10 minutes. So up until 10 minutes to go, everyone has to make a pit stop. And that's good news for cars who got damaged, but not too damaged overall, to stop going. But yeah, Castor Bayer now trying to defend, and we actually got a couple more penalties in 64 on 63, 5-second penalty to the number 64, and number 20, that is Sheldon Scott Muscat, on the number 3, that was Kent there. That is a 5-second penalty to Sheldon Scott Muscat. So very, very difficult, of course, but to Muscat it won't make too much of a difference because he's retired the car.
Yeah, unfortunate for him, a couple of crashes in very quick succession, both with the same driver. Unfortunate for him, but a crash is a crash. He can't really. He hit the wall very hard, so unfortunate.
Absolutely, but even when you're that far back, even when you have a 5-second penalty, actually Gooch makes his way back out. That was the second Gooch, so he was probably coming in for a normal scheduled pit stop. Except that he hasn't filled in the requirements. So I think the first proper pit stop that we'll have done is by Riley, who's now in the pit lane. Right behind him, Ziege. And Boychev as well coming to the pits. So one of the penalty sitters, so to say, coming into the pits. And this 5-second penalty will now just be added onto his overall pit stop time.
Yes, these cars have to refuel. They have to take the time to. It's mandatory that they have to refuel their car, so they're going to be in the pit stop quite a while. I believe it was you who mentioned that they lose about a minute in the pit stop, so it's going to be quite difficult to. It's going to matter a lot where they rejoin the track if they have traffic, so they can keep their positions and keep their gap to the cars that were around them before their stops.
Absolutely. The entire drive-through time, because of this 50 kilometers an hour, just time of speed limit in the pit lane, it's so long. The pit stop time itself, however, if it's only refueling in this situation, it only takes a couple seconds. If you're maybe starting with your entire fuel load that you need for the race, you just put in 1 liter. That's a 3-second pit stop. So we have a slow up here of Armel going over the crest, and that's already, it's building slowly. Both Porsches avoided very nicely, but that's a big one for slow.
Big hit. Yikes.
Just barely not able to avoid it. So unlucky, of course.
Very, very unfortunate for him. I do believe he's out of the race.
Yeah.
We cut back to the lead of the race, where there is a very small gap between first and second here. Only 7 tenths. So in the pit stops, that could see maybe a change, maybe a battle. It'll be interesting to see how that plays itself out.
The pit stops will be the next bigger part now. Of course, Tinko van der Velde. He's basically now the man who dictates strategy, or well, tries to dictate strategy, as Kyle Atkins comes in to attempt an undercut. Yeah, we'll have to see if it works out.
We'll try and keep an eye on him, see if he comes out in traffic. As Luke Whitehead also behind him pits as well. So again, those two quite close on track at the moment. Will be interesting to see how they filter out and what they make of their fast, well, maybe not faster, but their newer tires.
Yeah, we have to also see if they actually do take tires for this short time. It could be that it's just this very, very short pit stop of refueling 1 or 2 liters. And if that is the case, then this pit stop is of the utmost importance. Why? I will explain you before I even ask. Because for the pit stop to actually start, you have to shut off the engine and, well, then just park at the right spot as well. Otherwise, the pit crew will not start the service. So the best thing to do is actually just shut off the engine just before you get to a halt. Hope that you park perfectly so the pit crew will start work immediately. Otherwise, you can lose multiple seconds. And as we saw that gap between Atkins and Van der Velde, well, that was very, very close.
You mentioned talking a bit about the pit stop routine. It seems dangerous if you're turning off your engine, if you miss the mark, it seems like you lose a lot of time having to turn back on the engine, reposition your car, and then turn it off again to be refueled.
Absolutely, but that's just the risk that you have to take, of course. You want to just try and get as much time as possible that you can gain through this pit stop. Dario Mangion actually has been staying out of trouble the entire race, now finds himself in 4th place. Of course, he has to go in the pits as well, but nevertheless, that's still a very good position to be in right now. And we also had the 4th bit of news from our stewards. Jafari actually disqualified for that escapade there with multiple avoidable contacts. And yeah, that's what I kind of anticipated after the first 2 hits.
Yeah, it was a very strange thing. Like, he had his accident, and then afterwards, didn't really get out of the way. He was very much impeding other drivers. So I do think a disqualification is fair.
Absolutely. And I mean, if you could bring a nice little reference to what a certain German F1 driver says, Sebastian Vettel, over the radio. What are we doing here? Racing or ping pong? So yeah, the steward's definitely thinking the same thing. For now, Jafari is parked, and that's going to be the end of his race.
Yeah, a very strange one for him. I don't think I've ever seen something like that where, you know, he hit, I think it was 3, if not more, drivers. So very unfortunate for those drivers that unfortunately got caught up in it. I hope some of them can regroup and maybe score some good points, but not something they would have been anticipating or hoping for, obviously.
Absolutely. Tinko van der Velde still remains out, however. Samir Foch, Daniel Stromae now also in the pit lane. Dario Mangion into the pits. And Kalai Atkins, the first driver who has pitted, of course now chasing after van der Velde. We still have to see, though, how this will play out. The gap between Atkins and Whitehead was a bit shorter, I think, when they came into the pits. It was about a second, I think, so Atkins placed his car pretty much perfectly there. Whitehead lost maybe a second, maybe he had to refuel a tiny bit more. Multiple reasons that's possible, but the gap has grown a little bit bigger.
Yes, it should be interesting to see how Van der Velde filters out at the end when he takes his pit stop. You know, if Akins has managed to get it spot on and managed to gain some time on Whitehead, it's very possible that he could make time on Van der Velde as well. So we could potentially see a battle for the lead at the end of the pit stop phase.
Absolutely. Now we have Samir Foch here out of the pit lane, and actually, who was that going by?
That was Akins.
Yeah.
So
and Stromae maybe a bit too trigger happy with the pit limiter there. Stop and go 30 seconds.
Oh, that is very unfortunate. Just on it. Oh, he was running so well as well. That's going to really ruin his chance for like a podium finish maybe, or just high points in general.
Yeah, absolutely. Having to do basically a full service pit stop as a penalty, that is going to ruin your chances completely. Also, Dean Riley actually slots in front of Samir Foch. However, he hasn't done his pit stop yet. Mangion actually gets a 30-second stop and go as well, also speeding in pit lane, but Riley still has to get into pits, and I think now he may have run out of time to actually do that pit stop.
Wow. And it's a very strange one. He was riding rather towards the front, and after the pit stop phases, he's still in 4th. Tinko van der Velde now in the pit, so it should be interesting to see where he filters out and if Akins can make any ground on him. Yeah, it should be a very exciting next couple of minutes, I think, as they all filter out the pits and back into each other's racing lines.
Absolutely. Van der Velde now obviously has this time, which it just feels like ages when you're going down that pit lane. You see other cars going by. Well, luckily for Van der Velde's psyche, not in this case. He's just waiting, slowly going down the pit lane, but you can see how quickly the cars are closing, and Atkins even a bit further up ahead, now almost 3 seconds ahead of Whitehead. Dean Riley right behind Luke Whitehead, but I wonder if he will just go into pit lane now and actually get that mandatory pit stop out of the way.
I believe he has to. He won't have time for another lap. Like 41 seconds, he's not going to get around another lap in that time. So he hasn't taken his pit stop. And I believe, other than Armel, he is the only one so far, if I'm judging correctly by the color-coordinated things on the side of the timing screen.
Absolutely, you are judging perfectly correct. Van der Velde now slowly out of the pit exit there, coming up Radio. Will the gap be bigger or shorter? It's a lot bigger, actually. Bigger.
He's made up some great time on Akins throughout that pit stop phase. Staying out those few laps. Almost over a second. And I don't think that's actually correct.
We had around 7/10 of a second. I think this is solid. I think 3 or 4 seconds now, almost.
The window is now closed.
3.2.
3 seconds.
2.5 seconds basically through that pit stop phase. Fantastic driving von Van der Velde.
Definitely, he's going to be delighted with that, you know. Almost tripling his lead in the span of just a few laps. That is amazing for him. And it sets him up very, very well for the rest of this race, you know. 10 minutes left, 3 seconds. It's not impossible to close that gap, but it's not exactly easy either.
Yeah, absolutely. We also have another car parked down in the funniest chicane. That is Amel, actually, in the 71 car. Now gets going again, so something has been going on there. Also had... he was the second driver that didn't deliver his pit stop. So while at the moment they're not going to have a penalty or something, at the end of the race they will receive, I think, either a drive-through or a stop-and-go in a time penalty added on to the rest of the race. So I think Riley must be very, very confident to, well, keep going like this. If he thinks that this is actually faster than, well, getting in for the pit stop after all.
It's a bold choice, isn't it? To maybe deliberately, maybe possibly misjudge it, but I can't imagine he would like, having passed the pit lane entry with at least 40 seconds, I can't imagine he misjudged it. But having said that, he is currently attacking Luke Whitehead for 3rd place, so he is still in the mix, even with a penalty that will drop him back a little bit. If he has the pace, he might be able to make something work with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think right now only Dean Riley will try to hope that probably that Andrea Rizzo and Alan Gooch, that's the driver with the 222, were actually far enough away from, you know, Amel and also Manjian, who just delivered his drive-through penalty, and of course Stromae as well with his stop-and-go penalty. I think he's hoping that the penalties of these other drivers were long enough that he still stays within the points for the sprint race.
It could be, and you know, very difficult. It's a very big risk to take, but you know, it's the one he's made, and he does seem to have the pace. Like, he's keeping Luke Whitehead honest so far. He would want to get past, obviously, as soon as possible so he can build that gap, make more time on the cars behind. And as the traffic might be getting in the way a little, he could have an opportunity into the final sector and second sector.
Absolutely, and now there's lap traffic actually right ahead of Luke Whitehead. He will not like that. It's a 71 of Amel in the Bentley, and he's just not quite getting out of the way. Actually gets in the way more and more, trying to get out of the way, and oh, that is actually even more. That's almost defending at this point, and there's a collision.
Collision. That is Luke Whitehead sends off the road. Don't know. I think he hit the wall.
He hit the wall outside as well. He will be absolutely fuming at that.
I can't imagine the stewards are going to be particularly happy with Amel either. He had many opportunities to get out of the way and just chose not to. As you see, now he does with Samir Four. Very strange driving from Amel. We know he has a damaged car, so you could say that maybe that affected him slightly, but it wouldn't affect him that much. I don't imagine.
I think as soon as Whitehead pulled side by side with him, he could have gone and, well, he could have gone and lifted off, but he didn't. And in the end, this mix-up between that, obviously Whitehead trying to get past Amel, and then, of course, Riley seeing a gap between himself, between the inside of the grass, and Whitehead, of course, went for that gap. So a bit of a mix-up there, and in the end, Whitehead paid the price very, very dearly. So.
Definitely. And it's one of those things, you can't really fault Riley for going for the gap. We know he's trying to make a lot of time. We know he needs to take every opportunity he can. So when a gap opens up, you know, a driver slowing down your rival, you're going to take it. Unfortunately, the outcome is Luke Whitehead being sent into the wall.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But also, sorry, continue.
I think actually with the penalty coming in after the race, the only thing that has changed from this is that, well, Samir Foch will be promoted to 4th place. Luke Whitehead will, Samir Foch will be in 3rd place, sorry. And Luke Whitehead will be in 4th place. And actually he's taking 3rd place just on track now. No biggie, just drives past on the straights, let that Ferrari twin-turbo V8 roar. And very nice pass around the outside for Nick Combe.
Yeah, he's benefited a lot from that, like, weird skirmish with the back markers. He's up 2 places, now into a podium spot, and Dean Riley, and it has to follow him around. We'll see if he can attack back, maybe make us some more time. But yeah, a strange situation that I'm sure Fo is absolutely loving, as he's gained many a position.
Absolutely. But also just generally, Samir Fo, over time, you could see it very, very nicely. He started out as a midfield runner, now as one of the front runners here. And over half an hour to stay within, well, even 10 seconds of Tinko van der Velde, one of the guys who is very big veteran of sim racing, of the SimGrid World Cup, SimGrid Endurance Cup, SRO Esports Series. Definitely you can let yourself be seen with an improvement like that over time. So Samir Fo really showing his constant improvement there, constantly driving the Ferrari, and very, very getting along with it very well as well.
Definitely, a very impressive drive from him. As we cut back to our race leader, Tinko van der Velde, still a 3-second gap to second place. He's leading a very comfortable race right now.
Absolutely. Now only 2 laps to go, of course, as well. So the only thing that Tinko has to do now is just basically keep it calm, keep it steady, and sail home.
Definitely, he doesn't need to do anything crazier out of the box. He just needs to take every corner as safely as he can. Obviously maintaining the gap, but even if the gap falls a little bit, he still has a 3-second buffer to Akins.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, with the 3-second gap, you can let yourself go a little bit longer, of course. It's not, well, the gaps aren't that big that you would, of course, completely ease off, lift off. But you have a comfort gap, so to say.
Yeah, just a little confidence gap, something that he knows he can brake maybe slightly earlier on some of the harder corners, doesn't need to take as many risks, because he has that buffer. Someone who doesn't have a buffer, though, is Charlie Kent making an overtake on, I believe, Kirsten Abeya, or it could be the other way around.
Yeah, actually, you're correct there. Abeya obviously trying to defend, and this is the same style of defensive driving that helped him to his win last week. Last week on this very day in the Malta National GT3 Championship at Lime Rock Park.
Definitely, we've seen how amazing he can be at defending, and he's doing it again here. He blocks his car perfectly.
Oh! No!
That is unfortunate, turned around. I do believe Kent is waiting. I think he knows that was his mistake, so some good sportsmanship there from Kent.
That is some very good sportsmanship. And of course, Gagliardi Gonzalo is going to say, well, I mean, you two guys do you, I'm just going to keep driving.
Yeah, no judgment. He doesn't owe anyone anything. He's taken his positions and his points, and he's going to drive into the distance. But yeah, always nice to see when a driver recognize they made a mistake, they wait for the competitor. An unfortunate situation, but it's still very nice to see.
Absolutely. And yeah, as I was before that happened, I was gonna say, Kirsten Abeya perfectly parking it on the apex there, not giving any opportunity for Kent to look down the inside or try to get past, and well, just parked it for a little bit too long because, of course, well, Kent has to get on the throttle again at some point as well, because you saw how close Gonzalo was right on his tail. So yeah, quite unfortunate, but very, very nicely lets each other back through. Last lap now. Tinko van der Velde started it. Lap 13, that should be. And actually still gaining time on Nikolai Atkins.
Yeah, the gap has increased, almost 4.5 seconds now. Absolutely incredible driving from him. I don't know if Atkins maybe made a mistake or if it's just Tinko van der Velde eking ahead.
Space, and just even now he's just sort of cruising around, as it would seem. Just nothing really big happening, no rare end stepping out or anything, yeah. And he's just still doing 218 lows, so really, really fascinating, the car control of this man.
For sure, definitely. As we now cut back to the battle for P3 with Fo and Riley again. They're still very close together. They're still, Fo can't let off the throttle, and Riley isn't going to either. He still has the penalty he's going to take. He still needs to be there and be as far ahead as he can be. So it should be interesting how, 11 seconds left. This is the battle to the line. I wonder if Riley might be getting slightly desperate, wanting to take that move and that time away from Fo.
Yeah, absolutely. But not just that. Riley will I don't think that Riley can afford any bigger battles right now. I think he just has to get into the finish as quickly as possible, simply because of the penalty of him missing his mandatory pit stop. He will definitely just want to finish as quickly as possible, try and make sure that he's still in the top 15, 4 points positions here.
Definitely, I think he's very clearly realized that that's where he's going to finish up. Like, all he wants is points right now, and he has lost some time to Foe, so probably not going to make up that position now in the last few corners. Think of Van der Velde, however, coming up to the final to the chicane. What an incredible drive.
No mistakes, no big attacks that he had to defend from. Just a perfect drive all throughout. He knows this. Waves from side to side. Congratulations to Tinko van der Velde.
Congratulations, Tinko. And Akins as well, an incredible drive. Put up a very big battle in the opening half. Foe takes third, so another podium spot for him. Very, very well deserved. He also drove very well. Riley takes his pit stop now, which is interesting, but okay.
I mean, it's not gonna count, so I don't quite know why he took it, but the spirit was there. 130 seconds now, so that is basically a lap. That's gonna hurt.
It's gonna hurt a lot, unfortunately. Luke Whitehead does get promoted back up to 4th place. Unfortunate for him, obviously, with the hit into the wall. Could have maybe gotten 3rd, maybe held off Foe, but Foe was driving very fast towards the end of the race, so it's hard to tell.
Absolutely. Mateusz Wresniak finishes in 8th. Ivan Boychev comes up to 9th place. Kasperzik comes in 10th. There he is. And next up we already have one Gergely Konsabo who should be approaching quite soon. Stremer is actually in the pits as well, having gotten a drive-through. And I think actually Dean Riley should be safe in the points positions like this.
Wow. Strange. Again, a strange situation for Dean Riley. What I wouldn't give to be a fly on a wall in his sim rig.
They are now coming across as well, and yeah, I think we just have to look out for Stremer, who I think is parked in the pit lane.
Could be, but yeah, Kesna Bayer again, some good points for him at the end of the race. Yeah.
Absolutely.
As you can see, we're now back in the studio. I am once again joined by Davinia. Hello.
Hi.
For the 3rd time today.
Yes, yes.
What did you think of the race? Think of Van der Velde, a very dominant drive, lights the flag and won the race with almost 5 seconds on his closest rival.
Yeah, I believe he had no incidents, no bumps in the road, plain sailing. I think he's a very good racer, and he will probably go for the win.
I have to agree with you. We saw him in previous races. He can put his car exactly where it needs to be to score massive points consistently. And second race coming up in a few minutes. It's going to be another strong performance for him. He's starting on pole again. Can he repeat his lights the flag victory, or can Akins try and stop him?
Definitely, I think if he keeps the pace that he was going to and keeps the fact that he didn't have any mistakes, I think he will surely go forward and keep the same record that he's done so far.
What's interesting though is Akins obviously knows that in a half-hour race, maybe he couldn't beat Tinker Van der Velde last time. What's he going to change? How is he going to attack this race differently? Nico earlier mentioned that McLaren is a bit more. It drinks its fuel a bit faster, so that could play into Tinker Van der Velde. Maybe he might be a bit slower towards the end of the race. So it could be interesting to see how the races stack up now with double the length. Nico, what's your take on the battle for the front places?
I think it's quite difficult to judge, of course. Tinko drove a perfect race just now, finished perfectly. And I think now it's all going to be about, him actually being a bit more on the back foot with that fuel consumption from the McLaren. But we'll see how it ends. I'm certain that, he's experienced enough to be able to deal with something like this. But at the same time, we know how fast Kalai Atkins is. And I think if Tinko shows one bit of a moment where he can't go full pace, Kalai will be right there. But of course, we have so many other drivers in this field which are also just able to attack Tinko like that.
Definitely, I think assuming the qualifying grid from the first race continues to the second one, which I do believe it does, we could see, the same drivers kind of making their way through the field. Luke Whitehead is another one. Can't really count him out. Foe did an absolutely brilliant race, and even Dean Riley, or I believe it's David Riley. Oops. Someone correct me. But yeah, Riley drove very, very fast, and even though he was maybe unfortunate or maybe screwed himself over a little bit with the pit stops, he now knows what he can do for the second race, so he might change his tactics slightly.
Absolutely. On that note, we'll quickly go for a short ad break, and we'll be right back momentarily.
L-ewwel ħaġa bħala Gaming Malta l-esports huwa settur importanti ħafna għalina. Meta nħarsu lejn gaming ma nitkellmux biss fuq l-online gaming, imma hemm il-video gaming u anki l-esports. L-esports huwa settur li internazzjonalment qed jikber ħafna u Malta għandha rol importanti wkoll x'tilab f'dan is-settur. Coming back to home, il-World Pro Racing hija kumpanija li dit mill-Maltin u qed tagħmel suċċess internazzjonali. Ġifieri Malta għalija hija pedina għal l-ambizzjonijiet tagħhom fuq pjan internazzjonali.
L-ewwel rrid insir Formula 1 driver u ngħaddi lil Lewis Hamilton bir-rekord tiegħu. U mbagħad wara rrid insir engineer.
Mela, it-tifel huwa professional driver diġà tal-go-karts, tella barra minn Malta nkajsu u training u hekk allura bejn telliqa oħra meta ma jkunux jistgħu jiċċessaw it-trek huwa tajjeb li jiġi hawnhekk jitrejnja hija simulator bħal go-kart qiegħed isuq ġol l-istess trakka li jsuqgħu Malta lura jkun qiegħed training minflok qiegħed ġa trakka stess. Għandu l-coach tiegħu tas-CRG stess, jgħalmu jagħtu ħtiebs barra minn Malta l-istess ħaġa kalmuhom kif iduru mal-kantunieri, race line, il-ħinijiet x'in jafsu l-gass, il-break. Hija teknika ħafna l-ħaġa, ġifieri kapaċi ħafna iktar minn it-tifel. Huwa post fejn jista' jiżvoga. Meta jmorru ġa trakku ma stess jgħidulek aħna nastuna żvogajna flaxej jħossuhom tranquilli għax ineħħu l-istress tal-ġurnata, l-istress tal-iskola, kollox. Plus li huwa sport sabiħ għalihom li jitrejnjaw. It-tifel trabba ġol karozzi, allura għalih hija passjoni. Dan iċ-ċentru għalih huwa post fejn jista' jiżvoga jkunu. Għal dawk il-parents forsi li jibżaw jgħidulek għax huwa perikolus. Hawnhekk m'hawnx periklu. Edin protetti, ġobini, it-tfal jaraw xiridu. Jekk ma jibdewx issa minn ta' żgħira xorta jibdew meta jkunu kbar, so ma jteżvelithom l-opportunitajiet kollha li tkun tista' tihom meta jkunu żgħar.
Jien ma' World Pro Racing naħdem bħala replay person u nsuq mat-tim ukoll. Main task jien normalment nagħmel nieħosib li l-computers kollha din jaħdmu, nieħosib li l-komunità għandna platform online li kollox qed immur sew anke nikkomunikaw ma' drivers u wara l-events nikteb l-artikli nippubblikawhom fuq il-website. Jien as such bdejt bħal kull student naqa' technical know-hows, imbagħad ovvjament through time bdejt nitgħallem kif ċertu pereżempju broadcasts, ċertu affarijiet, ċertu preparations li jsiru qabel regarding World Pro Racing, anke bħala sim racing. Bdejt jien bħala e-sport jiġifieri aktar fuq computer, bdejt bil-mod nibni bħala steerings u hekk tracks tibda bil-mod kollox pass pass issa.
Hello and welcome back. I hope you enjoyed our little ad break there. So, as we now prepare for the 60-minute race, the feature race, should be an interesting one. Nico, what's your take? If you had to put money on someone, I'm going to throw you right into the deep end on this one. If you had to put money on someone, who's your money on?
I'd say either on Tinko or on Kalai, to be honest, because they just drove perfect races both. Especially with the... I put money on Kalai as well, because with the handicap of the McLaren fuel usage in that quali map, I'd say that Kalai definitely has more of an attacking chance than in the sprint race, and they really have to have a look now, how to use their advantages there for an entire hour, and especially because that Aston Martin is a little bit easier on the tires as well, maybe a bit more of a chance for Kalai to attack.
Right, well, should be interesting to see. Davinia, I'm going to throw you the exact same question.
I agree. I perfectly agree what Nico said, but I would go for Riley. I think that if he continues to go with the pace that he went, he would surely get a better position than he plays right now. So I think that it will be a very close call.
Riley's an interesting answer. I think he definitely had the pace, especially towards the end of the race. Maybe some good time management, some good fuel management. He could very much attack, especially we saw him catching to Luke Whitehead. Should be interesting to see what he can do now. Obviously, double the amount of time, double the amount of chance. Should be interesting as the race starts. I believe we will have another half formation lap and then the actual start.
Absolutely. Now the last couple seconds, people will have to start their cars, of course. People, of course, are dropping out of the setup menu quite late, simply because the longer you stay in that, the longer you have preheated tires, and of course that's what you want as much as you can. And now they're all waiting for the formation lap to get going. Van der Velde, of course, starting from P1 again. Atkins alongside, behind that, Foch, Riley, Dominiak, Whitehead, Stremer, Kent, Ziege, Neuwirth, Amel, and Slow. The top 12, of course, still remaining the same. Behind that, of course, the entire same crew as last time as well. Now they'll have to pull even, of course. Everyone bounces up, and now just waiting for the change from the speed limit, or from the position manager to the speed limit to 70 kph. And very late green flag, but here we go. Tinko van der Velde this time a little bit further up ahead. So looking on the outside for the first left-hander at Rouge. Not quite able to make a move, but he sticks closer with Kalai Atkins this time. Atkins, though, good run through Radio. Actually tries to get alongside Tinko van der Velde, and behind that, Stremer has to defend from, I think, that is Kent, but 3 wide now with Ziege making it 3 wide in the middle. Contact! Stremer is the only one that stays on the road. Ziege and the other Aston Martin going off. A lot of time lost for him, and the Bentley of Amel takes that situation and turns it into good profit for him.
Very unfortunate for those two, obviously. 3 wide is very difficult on this track, especially in a braking zone when you're trying to make as much time as you can opening lap. Very unfortunate for the cars. Hopefully, we'll see if they can recover and how much damage they have, if that affects them for the rest of the hour. And very unfortunate for them. Up at the front, though, Tinko van der Velde did another excellent start, kept his place from the second and third place drivers, and is now not comfortable, but leading, and I think he'll be okay with that.
Absolutely, and the lead is growing a little bit by bit. Samir Foch right over the rear diffuser of Kalai Atkins. This time doesn't have to defend against Dean Riley or Luke Whitehead. Whitehead, of course, doing a quite good start once again, getting up into P5. Dominiak actually got a better start as well, staying in P6 and completely stayed clear of the chaos with Ziege, who's here now down in 13th after that contact, of course. And Resniak, I think that was actually Resniak who got mixed up with him in that collision. So very unfortunate for both of them, but of course this is still quite a few laps to go, and they all know that. So now it's just a matter of making it the best as possible.
Definitely, and once again we see, top 5, top 6 in the first opening laps, very close together. It should be interesting to see maybe who wants to push hard now, who wants to try and overtake, or who's trying to maybe save a little, just hold their position and see how the others filter out.
Absolutely. Lap 1 ends, and the order is Van der Velde, Atkins, Foch, Riley, Whitehead, Dominiak, Amel, Stremer, Muscat, and Neuwirth this time. Muscat getting a lot better start than in the sprint race. Absolutely flying through the field, so to say, in comparison to before, and of course staying clear of that collision and Lecombe. Now though, up Radio, Dean Riley's in the slipstream, now has to defend from Whitehead, though Whitehead is coming flying down his backside. He's going to go for the inside, of course. He's going to go for the inside to defend. Whitehead looks for the outside into the corner. Is he able to get alongside? Not quite. Late on the brakes, but a bit too much. Has to cut over the inside and has to back out again there.
Very unfortunate for Luke Whitehead there. You know, it's a very difficult move to go for around the outside. It's a very hard braking zone. He did well to try and keep it, but unfortunately ran a bit too wide, cut the corner, and managed to just filter back out right behind Riley.
And of course, you have to make the moves early if you want to mix for the front. But if you can't make the moves, then, well, you're going to be stuck behind Riley for now, Luke. Of course, very, very close still. And I think especially after that tragic ending phase in the sprint race, Whitehead is all too desperate to get, well, ahead of Riley and then pull sort of a gap as quickly as possible. But at the moment, he's just not even able to make the move stick.
Definitely, but obviously, they have to be careful. If they fight too much, they're going to lose time to the top three, and there might be too big of a gap to overcome later. As we see a replay.
Oh, it's Boychev. Oh!
Ooh. Very lucky for the driver who almost collected him. Manages to keep going. Boychev losing a few positions, but nothing too terrible. As oh, he gets spun around again. That's very unfortunate for him.
Wrong place, wrong time. Absolutely.
Definitely.
But lightning reflexes there from Muscat, just even with the, well, especially with the Porsche, being able to avoid that, with the car that's very, very unstable under sudden load changes, just flies past the spinning car there. And actually, there's another car spinning. That's Stramair.
Unfortunately for him, he was in the top 10. He was in the top 10. Now he's spinning down. Again, Sheldon Muscat is, once again, just making positions. He's keeping his nose clean and seems to be doing quite well the first few laps of this race.
I mean, that's all he has to do at the moment. And, well, especially judging from the sort of chaotic nature that we had in the sprint race after the first couple of laps, I'm wondering if we're going to see the same sort of trend here again. But now, Stramair, just having made that small mistake, of course, the first right-hander over the in that chicane, off camber, goes over a crest, so the rear end is light. If you just pin the throttle down a bit too hard while you're still rotating, that spin is going to be all too natural, as Stramair found out. But now, all over the back of, I think that's Jafari, got disqualified from the sprint race, but really trying to make a difference now in the feature race. But Stramair around the outside and actually thinks better of it with that very, very sideways movement of Jafari. And actually, look at that sportsmanship. Has to cut across to avoid, but still lets him back through.
Definitely. Unfortunately, losing both of them time to the car behind, Rizzo's right there. So we'll see maybe he can get in the mix. Aveya right behind Rizzo and then Monjon very close together.
Absolutely. No room to breathe there whatsoever. And it's for the last points position, of course, as well. Maybe just 1 or 2 points, or maybe 3 points if you're in the position of Jafari right now, but every single point counts, and Kirsten Aveya knows this, makes the way down the inside of Andrea Rizzo, who's of course in the World Pro Racing location on Malta right now, and through that gap, Dario Mangione finds himself as well, moves up into 16th place.
Yes, a very good move from Aveya. He saw a gap and just put his car exactly where he needed to again. Very, very well done.
Absolutely. And Kutsao actually made it around the outside of the right hand and the funniest chicane as well. Very, very impressive. Now we have Samir Focht, though. Goes the maximum amount of way that he is allowed to do to take as much track with him as possible. Tries to look down the inside. Not quite able to, but look at Samir Focht. Really taking the fight to Kalai Atkins.
Definitely. We saw this in the sprint race. He has pace. He's very fast around the circuit. And now he's challenging for P2. We saw the top two in the last race kind of untouchable. Not this time round. For around the outside of turn 1, can he pull it off? Not quite. Very, very well done, though. It's very difficult to go all the way around the outside of a tight hairpin like that. What can he do? Maybe up a Rouge and down to the Kemmel straight.
He just has to keep the car planted now, has to get the perfect line. Looks for the outside now, coming down the Kemmel straight, not quite able to pull alongside yet. Now he's alongside, on the brakes, and tries to get alongside, not quite able to make the turn in, and stays behind Atkins for now. But what a drive from Focht so far.
Absolutely, he's 100% on it. He clearly has the pace, he clearly has the go right now in the beginning phase of this race. It'll be interesting to see. He has a slight gap, obviously, having to run wide around the chicane, but I think he'll close that gap up again and try another time.
Absolutely, only 3,000 of a second behind the front of Atkins' car as they came over the Sector 1 marker. Whitehead, meanwhile, has finally gotten past Riley, so he's going to try and keep it that way. Dominic right behind that is not too far behind either, and Amel, despite starting a bit further back, in 7th place as well, not too far behind. Let's hope that Amel this time doesn't have such an unfortunate DNF like as in the sprint race where the rear end just snapped on him over the crest. Stromae, meanwhile, actually keeps it in position 13, so he made a position since the start. Actually, he made it past Jafari.
Yeah, and we saw in the background Jafari going slightly wide, maybe struggling a little with the car right now. But yeah, Stromae making up positions, trying to recover after his spin earlier in the race. Should be interesting to see how far he can get up, how many points he can score at the end of the...
Absolutely. Matthias Verresniak actually made his way past Jean Muscat, so Muscat maybe not quite having the pace that he needs in that Porsche, but absolutely having the consistency to try and stay in the points position. Now a 2-second gap behind him, Sieg in another Porsche. But, well, either way, he's going to have to look out now, because of course, consistency alone can't win you a race. But, yeah, so far it's been doing wonders for him. Mangier now looking for the outside of Abaya, not quite able to get alongside, and Abaya once again showing fantastic defensive driving. And Jafari's already heading to the pit lane. What is that about?
Possibly some damage? I'm not sure, but as you see, Ritz are trying to make a move on Manjon now. I wonder if he can get around the outside. Very difficult to do, but he keeps it planted. He's made some good time. Unfortunately, not able to make the move stick. And behind him, you know...
Alain Gooch, yeah.
Yeah. Right there, again, very close together, very... If any of them make a mistake, there are 2-3 cars behind just waiting to... Oh, Samir 4 has gotten past Aikens at the P2. So now
I hope we get a replay of that.
I hope so too. It will be interesting to see like where he made the move, how he did it. But yeah, into P2, now going to chase off the Tinko van der Velde. And again, you know, we were talking about it. He has the pace. He's clearly a very fast driver. And yeah, I wonder how he can now hold up against chasing Aikens behind and running away van der Velde in front of him. Should be a very interesting one to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially right behind that, now we have a triplet of Aston Martins again. So we're going to have to see how these guys also fare up against the Ferrari.
Absolutely, you know, obviously we're still in the very early stages of this race, but you mentioned as well, McLaren is hot in its tires, so if Van der Velde starts dropping off some pace and Falk can keep it up, he might very well be in a chance to close the gap and challenge Van der Velde.
Absolutely. But yeah, even actually closing the gap in the last sector there, it was 2.1 second, now 1.899. So Falk actually having definitely good pace. Maybe this is the fuel saving that I mentioned from Van der Velde kicking in at the moment. Maybe he's choosing to fuel save while he has a bigger gap, but nonetheless, the gap is coming down a little bit. So really, I'm wondering now if Atkins maybe is just going to stay behind Falk, try to just mooch off a bit of his slipstream and stay in a confident position. And yeah, once again, the gap is just slowly going down.
Yeah, it could be. You know, I think it'll be smart for Aikens right now to stay behind Far, stay as close to Far as he can, use his slipstream to maybe save some fuel and some of his tires, and try to launch a proper attack a bit later in the race.
Absolutely. Foch now making his way once again for Eau Rouge Radion. That car is absolutely planted there. And I'm really wondering if that maybe was just a few mistakes from Van der Velde, or if Foch really has just unlocked that inner eye, so to say, that he just needed to see. Now here we have that replay. Wonderful. How close he gets on the brakes.
Wow.
Incredible.
Very late. And an excellent drive on the exit as well. He's going to pull up alongside going into Eau Rouge. And he's just ahead. He just got the drive in his thing. He's going to have to... Yeah, Aikens fills in behind. What a interesting move from him. You know, got very close on the brakes and then just managed to drive away from Aikens, it seems.
Absolutely incredible move from him. Just wow. I'm at a loss of words. And the gap goes down again. 1.5 seconds now. So Van der Velde definitely has something that is holding him up now. Or Foch has just unlocked that third eye where he's seeing every perfect breaking point, every perfect line, and well, every perfect everything. But now there's something that is very far away from perfect. That's Jafari in front of him. Van der Velde got past him before the funniest chicane, but now for the next two right-handers, Campos and Stavolo, that could be in the way.
And we saw Jafari last time round wasn't the best at getting out of the way of some of the drivers, so we'll see. Hopefully he's not
Actually forces him off the track there.
Curse of the commentator's curse. Yeah. Unfortunate for Fo, but you know, again, he has that pace, so I don't think it'll be too much of a hindrance for him. Maybe lose some time, maybe a lap or so. But he was catching Van der Velde at quite a rate of knots. And again, credit to Atkins, he's not too far behind. He's keeping pace with Fo and Van der Velde as well.
Absolutely, and you know, to just stay in that position there, to stay close, it's really the basic thing that you have to do. Now, we have actually had a few penalties, as you can see on the board here. Let me quickly read out what they are from. 1 and 15, so that will have been Stromae and Sieger, so that was a 3-wide action. Number 1 penalty, that is for Stromae, gets a 10-second penalty for that major accident there. And then 977 gets 5 seconds, that's Gary Consabo, for an incident with the number 77. That is Mangion for unavoidable contact. And the 333 gets a drive through for causing a major... Oh, that's a big one.
I apologize for interrupting you, but look Whitehead again trying to lap Jafari, who just didn't get out of the way again. You know, we were talking about sportsmanship earlier, and that really isn't it. It's just disappointing to see from Jafari. He was, you know, being lapped. He's in last place or around that time. You know, Luke Whitehead was in 4th. He's now going to drop very far down. If he has damage, probably out of the points. It's just really, really unfortunate to see.
It's just gone from bad to worst for Luke Whitehead. And I'd love to have a replay of that again as well, because simply like it just happened so quickly. And you know, ironically enough, Chris Gooch got a drive-through penalty for a very dangerous dive bomb with a major incident. I'm wondering if Jafari may be going for the double, but he's actually DNF now. So yeah.
His Carosa had a very hard hit, so probably race-ending damage. But yeah, that was. He did it
too. Definitely out as well.
Yeah, that is very unfortunate for him. He was driving so well, he was up in 4th, and now it's kind of gone downhill from him.
Oh, such a difficult situation, of course. Meanwhile, of course, for the drivers behind him, it's a freebie. And as tragic as it is, you know, everyone always loves a freebie, so to say. Race carries on, sadly.
You know, one man's trash, you know. Luke Whitehead's probably going to be ruining this day for next week, but Riley's gained a position and gained more points, so from his perspective, he's like probably shaking his hands, wondering if he can go off to Atkins.
Yeah, absolutely, and well, 2 times now that he's had backmarker collisions, so he's absolutely gonna be livid, I think, after this. We actually have... Oh, that's the Bentley. That is Amel actually going in for pit stop as well. I'm wondering if they're just going in trying to get a pit stop done, because I'm not sure if we have a pit stop window here again, but it could actually be.
I believe we do. I believe around the midpoint of the race we should have a 10-minute pit window like we did last time out. But I don't really know why the cars are pitting now. Maybe some damage. Maybe they just want to try and get an alternate strategy, possibly.
Yeah, but at this point it would just be lost time. But yeah, we'll never know. Maybe Amel was actually right in that, well, sort of debris field, so to say, from the accident. There we are. Jafari not getting out of the way. That is the replay that we asked for. Whitehead right on his tail.
Yeah, he has all the time in the world to get out of the way, hit the brakes. He's in 20 seconds at this point.
Oh,
he doesn't need to be there. Oh, that's a massive hit for Whitehead. Probably front and rear damage in that crash. Very unfortunate for him. He was completely the innocent party.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, he couldn't just anticipate how slow Jafari was going up there. And yeah, once again, disqualified again and actually getting a race ban, as we hear it from the stewards. So Jafari definitely not getting a lot of, well, good reputation put on him here.
He hasn't made any friends today, has he?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, unfortunate. Especially for Luke Whitehead, you know, again, you mentioned, you saying he was running in 4th place. He was going to score some very, very good points, most probably. unfortunately, that's come to an end for him.
Meanwhile, though, Gabriel Consabo having a 5-second penalty doesn't hold him back one bit, still chasing Andrea Rizzo. And that BMW, no matter how big it may get, it's still fitting on the track, and he's using all of the track for that.
Yeah, it should be an interesting battle. They're very close on track. I haven't been keeping an eye on the gaps, but it does appear, like just judging visually, that he does seem to be closing corner after corner.
Speaking of closing, we also have Samir Foch actually closing on Tinko van der Velde more and more, and Atkins actually dropping back a tiny bit. Then Riley luckily was able to avoid the incident completely, same for Dominic Neuwirth and Slow right behind that. So luckily not too big of an incident, but that brings even more of a mystery why Amel actually went to the pit lane.
For sure. It is, you know, if one good thing came out of it, at least they didn't take out any other drivers who were just, you know, going up a rouge, foot to the floor, just wanting to make up time and keep pace with the cars in front of them. But yeah,
absolutely.
Well, less than a second behind Van der Velde now, so you know his mild interaction with Jafari earlier in the race doesn't seem to have slowed him down too much, as it now drops to 7/10. He is catching, and he's catching very fast.
Yeah, Ferrari power really kicking in here. The prancing horse is, well, prancing more than ever, and definitely getting closer and closer. You can see it on the track map there. And speaking of prancing more than ever, BMW may not have a prancing horse, but it's definitely unfolding its wings now, flying down the straight and getting closer and closer. This is the BMW power.
Is he going to go for a move, do you think?
Not quite yet.
Too far back. Yeah, a bit too far back.
But you see how fast that thing is on the straights. Absolutely incredible. And there's actually a Porsche. I think that is Ziga actually, who just had a mistake and is now within the fangs of both Rizzo and Consabo.
Yeah, again, interesting to see what will happen to him. He does seem to be kind of slower than the other cars. I don't know if he has damage, I don't know if he hit the wall or not, but he was definitely off the road. He goes to the side, so maybe he does have some damage.
Yeah, a lot of wiggling there into the corner, so that must be some harder damage especially. Very, very unfortunate for him.
Yes, as another car behind him gets past, I believe.
Yeah, that was Gooch also getting past.
Yeah. Unfortunate for him, you know, it's been an interesting race for him, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Ziga also, with that incident, you know, at the start, still continued to go quite well, actually. But yeah, very difficult. Oh, let's have a look here, actually. We may get some...
Well.
Yeah. Well, actually, no, that's already after that drive-through.
Oh, yeah, you are right. So something else happened, maybe another... Is that Van der Velde overtaking him?
Nope, that would be, I think, yeah, that would be Gooch. And...
Right. Similar livery cars.
I think that, yeah, the stewards may have something to say about that.
I would imagine so, yes. Squeeze him a bit too much to the outside, and then, you know, Gooch doesn't really have anywhere to go. Another strange incident for Amel.
But now all eyes on them. Eyes on the Ferrari and the McLaren of Samir Foch and Tinko van der Velde. Only 3/10.
You wonder what Van der Velde, you know, so much pace in the last race, could really just pull away from his opponents. Not this time. Foch is on it, and he's been closing and closing and closing every lap. That gap has been coming down and down, and now he's here. He's chasing after him right on his bumper.
Yeah, and especially, I think, at the next lap, that pit window should be opening as well. So we'll see there, but I think Foch
we may see if Van der Velde can once again get his pit stop absolutely perfect and pull a gap to his competitors, but he has to keep the lead for him to do that, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think this time Foch will actually try to go for an overcut instead, if anything, or just try to stay outside, well, out of the pit lane with Van der Velde as long as possible, just to try and make sure, well, I'm going to stay with you until the end. Lost a little bit in the middle sector there. Just a few tenths, but not too much. And you can see slowly how the Ferrari is slowly creeping closer now. Gets a bit of slipstream, of course. Half a second is that perfect window where slipstream starts kicking in a bigger effect. Now just has to get the perfect line through bus stop. Doesn't quite get it. Gets a bit too much rotated on the right side, and that may be a bit more of a gap for Thunderveld again. And absolutely it is.
Oh, they're losing a bit of time, unfortunately. Again, I apologize for some mild communication issues on my end.
Everything, of course, okay. Meanwhile, Ziege has parked his car. I think that may be it permanently as well for this race. And the Ferrari is hunting down the straight. Closing down quite a bit, actually.
Yeah, the gap has opened up a little in the maybe the last lap, but he's again Foe's on it. He's closed it right back up again. So maybe a lap or two, you could see him maybe chance for a move, maybe down the Camel Straight, possibly into the not Sandoval, that's Monaco. Oops. To the first hairpin.
La Sauce.
That one, yes.
Yeah, I think so. That is a possibility. But I think more importantly, we have a very old school battle at Spa. Yeah? Not just Ferrari versus McLaren, but low downforce versus high downforce. Simply because Foch is able to gain so much in the first sector, which is, you know, very much, except for Arouche and Radion, just one hairpin and a straight. And on that, he was able to gain 3/10, as Gergel Kunsabo now is trying to bother Kerstner-Beyer for P12.
Kerstner-Beyer once again having to bring out his defensive tactics.
And Kunsabo really just all over the back of him, really trying to get closed up and trying to get alongside, but Kerstner-Beyer, you know, he is a man that we see around very, very often here at World Pro Racing as well. One of our local Maltese drivers as well, of course. And yeah, very, very much so, trying to defend this position.
We've got a few fast cars behind him. Yeah, even Rizzo is right behind the 977 car, so not exactly. Kerstner-Beyer can't exactly rest easy.
Absolutely. Meanwhile, Samuel Foch actually closed the gap a little bit in Sector 2, so must have gotten a very, very good lap in. And then a little bit lost through the last chicane again, but it's closer than ever now, coming into the first sector. Same as for this triple group here.
Interesting battle. I think, like you mentioned, it's very much the case of one has the straight line speed, the other has the downforce.
Absolutely.
And obviously they're going to be continually frustrating each other by slowing each other down in the section that they're faster in.
Yeah, pretty much. It's just all about how you deal with that frustration. And now the pit lane window is open as well. And you can see Kunsabo's straight line speed now.
Kerstner-Beyer still defending from Kunshaw spins. I don't know if that was contact with Rizzo or not, but unfortunately for him, spinning out, he wasn't 15th place or 13th place. Currently dropping down to 15th.
I think that may have been contact.
And Rizzo can continue on. I'd love to see a replay from a different angle, see what happened, or if he has damage. Is he going into the pits? Yes, he is. So probably something wrong with his car there, wanting to just get it fixed up and get back into the race and see how he can stack up. But as we're watching that, Foe has gotten past Van der Velde. Foe is in the lead, and once again, I'd love to see the overtake for that. Foe now has the ascendancy. He can run away from Van der Velde, hopefully, and yeah, let's see what he can do. Let's see how he can now controls the race, controls the pace, and if Van der Velde has anything to say.
Yeah, I think Van der Velde really has to stick with Foch now. Maybe even try to go for an undercut, because he is very, very fast on the pit stops. And, you know, just try to gamble on not catching any traffic. So, it's going to be very difficult for him here now, but hopefully for him, he's going to be able to make a move back. Otherwise, Foch just sort of the dark horse of the competition, you know. One of the guys that normally a couple months ago probably wouldn't have been expected to be at the front, yet now he's leading a race against Cinco van der Velde.
This is the crash for Beyer, Rizzo, and Rizzo trying to get up the inside. Minor touch and just accidentally spun Kunstraho there. Unfortunate, but I think luckily for him, the pit window was open so he could drive straight into the pits and continue. Let's see here. Cinco van der Velde doesn't go into the pits, so he's going to continue following Foe around for a little more. Yeah, Foe hasn't really, obviously, you know, only been maybe half a lap to a lap, but hasn't really pulled out the gap yet. Tinker Van der Velde is still right there, right on his tail.
Yeah, absolutely, but not just that. You can see how Callie Atkins is also closing in the back. So maybe those two fighting is now opening up a chance for Callie Atkins just to close the gap a little bit more. Maybe even Dean Riley, who's also right behind Callie Atkins. So really interesting to see now how these gaps will develop. And also Callie Atkins a little bit too aggressive there over Radion. That may be a warning. So he may want to be more careful with that in the future.
I think that's getting a bit too eager, you know, seeing his rivals battling up at the front, wanting to just make as much time as possible while they're slowing each other down. Possibly, you know, could have taken it a bit slower, very much cut the corner slightly, but yeah, as long as he doesn't do that too much, he should be fine.
Absolutely. Now, Lucas Siege is in front of him. Bit back, but still. Oh, here we are.
This is the overtake. This is the one we want to see. Textbook down the inside, probably going to outbreak him slightly, and that is an absolutely amazing move. That's slightly wide though, which is quite interesting.
But yeah, makes the car just so wide that he can't get back through. That is absolutely a phenomenal move there.
Absolutely, like I think I said it once, I'll say it again. It was completely textbook. He knew exactly where to put his car so that he would slow down Van der Velde just enough so he can get the drive out the chicane.
Absolutely.
As again, we jump back to Akins here, trying to catch the leading pair and also maintain his gap to Riley behind. He's in an interesting position because if he takes a pit stop and gains a lot of time, he could very well put himself into the fight for the lead. But the counterpoint is if he loses time, he could end up behind Dean Riley and really screw himself over.
Absolutely, and I mean, right now, it would seem the window where he would come out would be completely by himself. Bit of a two-sided sword there, because either he would lose a lot of time or he could gain a lot of time. So really has to look out what he wants to do now. Meanwhile, Tinker Van der Velde now coming in. Maybe... Oh, he's actually staying out longer than Foch. Maybe waiting to take a bit more fuel. Maybe waiting a little bit longer with his pit stop so he can fully push in the second half of the race.
Be interesting, you know, we saw last time Akins pit before Van der Velde trying to get that undercut and it didn't work for him, so I don't wonder if Forrest trying to do the same thing. Maybe he thinks he's better in the pit stops and can build a gap, but you know, we know Tinker Van der Velde is good in the pit stops. He proved last time he built a 2-second gap, so if he can redo that, he should be very, very interesting to see how they filter out.
Absolutely. Not just that though, it's all about the positioning in the pit lane now. If Foch is able to get that pit stop started as quickly as possible, or if maybe his pit crew will have to pull him forward, push him back, or something along those lines before they can start working on the car. So it's all about the placement, all about knowing how you have to park your car, and Foch will have to really bet everything on that now.
Definitely. And even like in the pit stop he has to be perfect, and out of it he cannot put a foot wrong. The gap was maybe a couple tenths. He has to drive on the limit as well, because the same goes for Tinker Van der Velde, of course, you know. He can't let up. He has to be pushing as hard as he can on his used tires and fuel.
Absolutely. And now we have to really just wait and see at the moment. Atkins actually gaining a little bit on Van der Velde, so I'm wondering if maybe that was from traffic, but just generally it's not going to push a bit together again. Rizzo actually gets a penalty for that collision with Consabo through Blanchimont, so yeah, that slight touch, it was enough to spin Consabo around, so yeah, Rizzo will have to wait 10 extra seconds for his pit stop, and Consabo will probably like that, since he's already done his pit stop. Bloch now comes out, first man on the track with his pit stop completed, well, the furthest one up the track. Actually comes out in front of, I think, yeah, actually in front of Muscat. But Muscat actually gained quite a lot of time.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, I think luckily for Foch, he has a lot of clear ahead. He can push that car as far as they will go now, just to make that time to Van der Velde to keep his gap, if not consistent, increase it.
Yeah, absolutely. Callie Atkins now comes into the pit lane.
As does
we
Riley.
have to look where he comes out. Riley as well, yes, of course. But Van der Velde once again staying out, staying strong, and Neuwirth also in.
Van der Velde likes to stay out. He doesn't like pitting too early, doesn't he?
Yeah, doing the long run for those pit windows does have the advantage that you just don't have to, well, you don't really have to care about traffic whatsoever, but of course, cooling down your tires a little bit after a lot of pushing, it does help in the pit lane, simply because you're just driving so slow then. Speaking of cooling down, the track has cooled down overall now to a very chilly 31 degrees Celsius, so the pressures are completely out of the window now, if anyone completely specialized on these high pressures of 39 degrees.
Yeah, I wonder if that could be like playing a part into Van der Velde maybe not having the pace he showed in the first race.
Absolutely. Next up, we have, of course, Rizzo also coming into the pits there with a 10-second penalty, and Gooch actually getting a penalty as well on the 30 for a move on the 37. So actually on Rizzo. So cutting the corner and causing an avoidable incident. So probably while lapping, Gooch made contact with Rizzo, and an accident happened there. So there we have that. And Van der Velde obviously now having to make his way to the pit lane as quickly as possible, but no pressure on time. He'll have around 30 to 40 seconds still left before coming into that.
Yeah, of course, he has to take this lap unless he wants to try pull a Dean Riley and risk not taking it, which I doubt he will. So yeah, probably coming in this lap. It'll be interesting to see how he stacks up with Foe, Aikens, and Riley.
Speaking of Dean Riley, actually has managed to do the pit stop correctly this time and actually close in on Kalai Atkins quite considerably. Meanwhile, though, I'm just seeing this now, Foch actually lost a lot of time. What happened there? Foch is, well, over 20 seconds back.
Yeah, that is very strange. I kind of noticed that when he was pitting, I saw he was in the pits for a long time, but I assumed that was just me not really noticing when he went in, maybe misjudging it. But no, he does seem to have lost a lot of time. I wonder if maybe something went wrong in the pit stop. Maybe he didn't hit his mark properly, so he had to be pushed. Very, very strange.
Maybe accidentally in the pit menu left on the tire change. That costs 30 seconds. That could be basically spot on.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see that. Obviously, Tinko Van der Velde in the pits. If he gets it perfect, you might think he's going to come out in the lead of this race. But, there's Aikens and Riley. Nose to tail. Where are they going to filter out,
I think right behind Van der Velde, because he's now coming down to the second part of the pit lane. Slowly making his way. But, yeah, of course, if he gets it perfectly, then he should only be stationary for 3, 5, maybe 7 seconds. If he wants to pack some extra fuel and want to push more. But, yeah, very, very unfortunate for Foch. After having overtaken for the lead and then, that long pit stop, probably by accident, and yeah, really, really unfortunate.
Sure. I wonder if we can get the replay from the pits, because I'd love to see what happened, even if it wasn't in the pits, maybe he spun somewhere or something along those lines. But it would be really interesting to see what happened to him, where he lost all that time, and obviously now the eyes are on him if he can recover and how far up he can recover to.
Absolutely. Van der Velde now, well, having had his only threat basically removed to his position, comes out of the pits. That is a very, very comfortable distance. Not just 2 or 3 seconds. That is along the lines of 4 to 5 seconds now of a gap. As Atkins now probably has to shift to the defensive because Dean Riley is right on his tail.
Definitely. Once again, we see Tinko Van der Velde managing to pull a gap to Aikens in the pit stop. He knows how to get them spot on.
Absolutely. And I think that's just a lot of practice, a lot of experience, and just knowing exactly where that car ends and where he has to put it for that pit stop to go as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and obviously, we're following the battle now for second. Dean Riley, so close to Aikens. We wonder if he's going to be able to try and move maybe along the Himmel Straight, maybe into the final bus stop. It'll be interesting to see how he tries to overtake Aikens now.
Yeah, maybe even trying to do a move in the second sector if he can get close enough, but that will be very, very difficult. Meanwhile, Foch actually, after his pit stop, starting to close down quite a lot on Dominiak, so we'll have to keep an eye on that as well. And, well, besides that, this is the closest battle on the track right now. Riley all over the back of Atkins.
Yeah, and they're both in Aston Martin, so they don't really have a car advantage. The traffic may not be getting in the way for Riley, as slight contact there. Unfortunate for him. Lost some time, but we'll see if he can make that back up in time.
And Armel just got a drive-through as well. probably for track limits, and also hasn't delivered his pit stop. So yeah, that's going to be rather annoying for Dean Riley, who was trying to obviously fight with Atkins. Atkins got through around the outside, and well, the Bentley just wouldn't move out of the way for him.
Yeah, the backmarkers in these two races have really played a massive part. Like, again, he's just seeing him holding up Riley. Unfortunately, Armel is not going to be Riley's friend in the end of this race, is he?
Absolutely not. I don't think he will be. But yeah, hopefully he's going to be able to.
Again, third corner running, hasn't pulled over to the side, hasn't hit the brakes, just to let him pass and carry on with the long race. Very strange driving from Armel there.
Boss seem to have had a very bad pit stop, so potentially just what you said, what could be the risk that you just drive a bit too far to the front, then you have to start the engine again, go back, and then even then the pit crew just not adjusting quickly enough. So really, really difficult to, of course, judge that the entire time, but yeah, for fourth, that's absolute hell probably. Over this last lap, though, once again catching up a second to Dominiak, and Riley is still stuck behind the Bentley.
It's one of those things. Who has been now disqualified, I assume, for not letting the faster cars past.
I thought for a moment it was the gods of disconnect, because I've actually had that, seen that quite a lot of times before. The car just disappearing or sinking through the track as the driver disconnects. But yeah, disqualified probably for ignoring blue flags excessively and actually, yeah, blocking quite a bit there as well. So
yeah. The question now is, obviously, unfortunately, ruined a very close race between Akins and Riley. One wonders if Riley can make up the time, but I mean, look at the gap, over 2.5 seconds. It's going to be very difficult for him to close it back up.
Yeah, it's 20 minutes, so around 6-7 laps left, I'd say. So yeah, he definitely has some chances, but I don't know if he will be able to catch up that quickly, especially now, 2.9 seconds the gap. Just a lot of time lost.
I think that'll probably be the frustrating thing for him, is that 2.5 seconds, although I think it's a bit more now, it is doable, but it's very difficult. He's going to have to be on it every single corner and hope that Akins makes a mistake. You know, the more mistakes Akins makes, the better a chance Riley has, and unfortunately for him, it's kind of an outside chance at the moment.
Yeah, so really, really frustrating for Dean Riley, the SimSport driver, of course. Well, hoping for a second place finish for the silver medal, but now completely seemingly lost his touch there. 2:20.5, 2 seconds slower than his fastest lap, so really frustrating for him, of course, and yeah, that's definitely not what he wanted.
No, of course not. Yeah, he's still following him around. The gap kind of remaining steady at around 2.5 seconds. Yeah, he really needs... It's one of those things, they're in the same car, so there's not going to be like a massive advantage, but like we know he'll make up a couple of tenths here, maybe lose one there. No, it's all down to driver's skill, and they're very, very talented drivers.
Actually stabilizes the gap now, so maybe he has found himself again. Just needed a moment to, you know, get rid of, well, the upset caused by the Bentley.
Yes, that's another thing, you know.
Again.
Yeah, that's another thing, you know. Frustration and anger, it does not make for a very composed driver, does it?
I mean, the thing is, it's a bit of a flip side coin, you know. On one side, when you're in anger, you're on adrenaline. I know that from experience. You know, sometimes that adrenaline helps you just focus a little bit more, and you can just pump lap time after lap time after lap time into the tarmac, and you know, just not lose any of your stamina. You're just so hyper focused that you just don't slow down whatsoever. But at the same time, if it just boils over a bit too much, and I imagine that it probably did, because a situation like that backmarker just, well, blocking you for an entire lap there, that is probably, you know, a lot of accumulative anger very, very quickly. That will just make you lose focus, and of course, you know, seeing the red mist, it doesn't really help overall to, you know, focus and continue pounding out good lap times.
Absolutely. And, you know, it's not like it was a, you know, Amel didn't get out of the way through one corner and then got out the other way. No, he was stayed in front of him for a really, really long time. So it's just a shame, really, for Riley. He was right there. Probably would maybe have tried to set up a move in Akins in the next couple of laps, but unfortunately now he's on another recovery drive.
Yeah, actually caught up half a second in this last lap, so making good progress. And we have Gooch, Alan Gooch, in the number 222 Ferrari. I think it was Chris Gooch actually who had that very, very big crash at the start of the last race. So what I presume was probably either his brother or his father or son, if they're related at any point.
I was about to say it would be very funny if they're not. This is just a wonderful coincidence.
The biggest coincidence ever, yeah.
Yeah, not the strangest thing. We have, in the Maltese series, we have seen, the same name runners, but then again, Malta is tiny, so, swings and roundabouts. But yeah, Adaguch currently running.
They are related, actually.
Oh, there you go. Nice to have confirmation. Yeah. He's currently running in 13th. A slight gap to Abeyer. Could maybe, again, if he has the pace, could maybe see an overtake in the next. As I say that, the gap is closing corner by corner. So yeah, it will be an interesting battle to see, like, obviously, fighting for the lower end of the points here, but every single point matters, every position matters. He's going to want that 12th place from Abeyer.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's getting closer and closer, but of course... Oh, actually, very big lunge, and he makes that work! How did he get that car stopped?
This is an amazing move. He
actually lets him back through because he thought the dive bomb was a bit too aggressive, I think.
It is, again, very sportsman. I respect that a lot. He went for the very ambitious move, got it done to his credit, made a little bit of contact, and then gave the place back. So good for him.
Very British gentleman-like. I do apologize. I did not mean to do this aggressive move.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Allow me to queue behind you while I replan my attack. Amazing. I love it.
Absolutely fantastic. Yes.
Oh, that's wonderful. But you talk about it is good sportsmanship and all, but again, it is a race, and the 14th plate driver is right there. Could possibly try an attacking now if he has the pace. So yeah, should be a very interesting three-horse battle for the 12th spot.
I think right now, Gooch will have to refine his focus there and actually get past the Abeyer, because the Abeyer seems to be holding him up a bit. Maybe left through Consabo, because Consabo is also faster, but mainly just, try to gain as much time as possible overall, simply because Andrea Rizzo is 7 seconds behind him, and realistically the only car that he can beat right now with his 10-second penalty.
Yeah, and he has to be very careful. If he attacks too much, he's going to lose time to Kunstraho behind him. So he wants to make that move as safely as he can and as quickly as he can to try and, he has pace clearly, so maybe he can try and eke out that 10 seconds Lorenzo and finish behind Kunstraho. Again,
Absolutely.
14 minutes. It's, again, building up the gap is absolutely doable, but he just has to make these moves stick.
Yeah, indeed, and you can see Consavo all over the back of that Ferrari, but speaking of all over the back, Samir Foch now all over the back of Dominiak as well. Only 8 tenths left, only 3 tenths left at the end of Sector 1.
He is absolutely flying.
And yeah, that mistake in the pit stop, I think he definitely won't be defined by it. Actually coming back from P6 or P7 up to maybe P4 if he manages to get that move done. But now look at this triple group here. David Consabo on the outside actually has to go a bit outside of the track. Oh, two of them running wide.
Yeah, I think Gooch is the only one who is the closest to being on the track, but I think all three of them were across the white line. Clearly battling very hard, clearly all wanted to keep their position, not want to lose an ounce of time there. Great racing for them.
All of them actually, losing so much time that Razor actually closed in 3 seconds on that last lap. 4 seconds now. So, yeah.
You can physically see him there. They have to, especially Gooch, has to be very careful not to get caught up in this battle. Because he is running with a 10-second penalty. The more he slows himself down, the worse it's going to be for him at the end of the race.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's actually already too late for that.
I would have to agree, yeah. Again, you see it again. Abeyer is defending so well. He has 2 very fast cars behind him, but he's made a slight mistake early in the race, but it doesn't really seem to be bothering him. He's couldn't.
Just a little bit of door rubbing there.
It's a polite bump between friends, I assume. Yeah. Can Abeyer hold it around the outside now? Goes a bit wide, has to cut the corner. Will probably have to give that place, and he does.
Yeah.
So this is the thing. What can Gooch do now? How far can he get ahead? Or can a bear come back at him? Can he, you know, take his position back?
Oh, they actually contact a bit there. A little bit of outbreaking himself from a bear. Samir Foch now trying to get
Here we go, the battle
more
for
momentum.
fourth place between Four and Dominac.
Absolutely, and Foch is now completely
Very
all
close
over the
together,
back.
coming down up to Rouge. Well, maybe Foch can set up a move at the end of the Kemmel straight into the chicane. Depends how much of a run he gets. As we see Dominac not really cutting the corner, but very easy, using all of the track and a bit more, let's say, trying to get as much speed down. But Four is setting up perfectly. He's gonna go round the outside. We saw Bayer kind of fail to defend this earlier. But yeah, Four just had the overspeed, went right round the outside. What an incredible move. Probably not going to catch Riley anytime soon, so unfortunately for him, this does seem like the best he can do after his pit stop blunder. But yeah, an absolutely brilliant move from him.
Good drive from him. Can you hear me again?
I can, yes.
Okay, good. Slight little sound issues once again. I'm sorry for that, dear viewers. But yeah, can just happen. Also, happens without warning, so whoops. But yeah, no issues, however, for the Haas, but without the money Ferrari. And yeah, it seemingly the money definitely doesn't seem to pose a problem, because I don't see Haas running anywhere close to the top 4 in any F1 race soon. So Samir Foch really running a very good race here. Getting not quite closer to Riley, but Riley is getting closer to Atkins for sure.
Definitely, that gap is closing. 10 minutes left, you know, if he keeps closing it at the rate he is now, I think he has a good chance of maybe attacking Akins. As we cut back to the battle around for 12th and 13th. Bayer seems to be out of this battle now. He's down in 15th behind Rizzo, so I don't know if something happened to him. But yeah, Kunstraha now attacking Gooch again for that 13th spot.
Maybe a small mistake. Maybe a small mistake from Abea, but yeah, Kunsabo really trying to get that move done now. Obviously has to look out for those maneuvers there as well, simply because of the track cut warnings that he could get.
Definitely, for sure. Yeah, the BMW now, keeping Gooch honest, you know, never falling too far back, trying to maintain the gap. And let's see, hopefully he can set up a move. I haven't really noticed where Kunshaho might be faster than Gooch or where he's losing time, but he seems to be keeping good pace with him throughout the lap consistently.
Yeah, for sure. And right now only 2/10 dividing the two. It's been like this for a couple laps though, and Kunsabo really trying to get some gap, you know, set up. They can just maybe exploit it a little bit. Gets close on the brakes once again, but you know, just that final bit of pace is still missing.
Definitely, yeah. He's keeping him honest. Like, if Gooch makes any mistake, if he loses time around any corner, you know, Kunshaho is right there. As you see now, kind of as close as he's been all lap. Is he maybe going to try and move into the chicane at the end of the road, at the end of the straight?
Really had to lift off a little bit too much there.
He might be a little bit too far back unless he tries an ambitious dive bomb, but no. Gooch defends very well, bucking his car on the inside, and can keep it ahead.
Actually, oh! Bit of a lack of traction there for Gooch.
Yeah, losing the rear end maybe slightly, and Kunshaho just drives straight past, gets into the place. Is Gooch going to be able to fight back? Maybe up the run from Rouge? It'll be interesting to see. And again, you know, we're talking about this battle. Rizzo and the 15th place driver, who I cannot pronounce his name. I'm sorry. They're not both very close behind. They're both, if they battle too much, they're going to be in the contention for these points positions.
Absolutely. Kasperzik, quite consistent driving so far from him in the race. Of course, getting caught up in a little bit of shenanigans early on in the race, but now making his way back up. And as it stands right now, very solid points position. And of course, he will probably want to get more than just 1 point.
Definitely, you know, from his perspective, he's going to want these drivers ahead of him to fight, to slow each other down, make mistakes, maybe even hit each other, because that just means he can get closer and be in more of a chance to get a higher point tally.
Absolutely. Atkins is also being caught slowly by Riley now. 1.2 seconds still dividing them, and actually Foch is closing in on both of them, but sadly too little too late. 7 minutes only left, so only a couple of laps left for him to catch. So yeah, I think it's basically after this is going to be 3 laps left, if I calculate that correctly just now. Casnabea definitely having some sort of problems.
He has a
'cause he's-
drive-through penalty.
Oh yeah.
Maybe corner cutting. Maybe he's picking up some damage somewhere and is now having trouble controlling his car.
Yeah, I think maybe even shot tires. It can be that by accident he selected the same tire compound that he used in the first sprint race. So yeah, if you run the race on all tires, you will lose seconds per lap, not just a couple tenths, and not just a couple hundreds, absolute seconds. And well, that of course can lead to damage if you overcook it. And yeah.
Yeah, he runs out again after that last corner, so it does seem to have some issue with his car. Tire wear does seem to be the most probable factor. You know, short tire is the very difficult low grip. You just kind of run wide or slide out of corners. Unfortunate for him, but yeah, he was driving quite well. He was up in 12th at one point, and now seems to have fallen back very considerably.
Yeah, really unfortunate for him. Meanwhile, further up ahead, you now have Kasperzik having passed Rizzo. We also have O'Reilly within a half a second of Caroline Atkins.
That gap is dropping and dropping, and in fact, this is the battle for ninth place. Wisniak and Stramer, very close on track. Both had kind of quiet races today. I think Stramer was involved in the spin at the beginning of this race.
Yep.
Kind of dumped it back from where he was, so he's done good. You know, he's still in ninth place, still in good points. Yeah, I wonder what Wisniak can do. Can he try and set up a move to increase his point score for the race?
Yeah, quite good recovery drive from Stramer for sure. Norwith also quite close behind Slow, and Slow actually still, I'd say, within potential attacking range of Muscat. So yeah, we'll have to look now who can actually make the moves in the last closing stages. Matthias Resniak now right on the tail of Stramer. Obviously, you can't just go flat out through here if you're this close behind another car, because you could get the overspeed if you have enough of it and just touch in the middle of that corner. That's the thing that Gunsabo had the most problems with Gooch, who's now dropped down a little bit further. So Gunsabo goes through, Kasperzik goes through, and Gooch is actually still ahead of Rizzo. So a lot of action happening through the entire field still.
Definitely, but you know, come back to Wisniak. He's on the outside going into the hairpin. A bit too far back, but if he can get a good run, you know, he might stand a great chance up the Rouge.
Absolutely. You're closer than ever now, only 1/10 dividing the two. But of course, you'll now have to adjust inputs, but actually no problems for him whatsoever. Actually, downforce to spare still.
Yeah,
so Resniak definitely very good running right now.
He's in the slipstream. He might be able to try a move, but Jameer defends well, you know, puts it on the inside. Wisniak operates slightly, will probably lose a bit of time. And come back to the battle for P2. Riley right back up on the, very close to Akins again after, you know, losing quite a fair bit of time because of Armel's shenanigans.
Yeah.
You know, 3 minutes left, maybe 2 laps, you could say. It'll be interesting to see if he has the time to get close enough and actually attack.
Yeah, this will be 2 laps now. Kasnabea delivering his drive-through penalty now as well. And, well, I honestly have to say, just really impressive drive from Dean Riley to actually get that close behind Kalai Atkins again. So, really well done from him. Fantastic drive. And yeah, it's really, of course, now coming down to these last 2 laps. But I think maybe his tires have now given up because he just lost over half a second in that last sector.
Could be, you know, it had to be an iron. Obviously, he would have been pushing a lot to try and catch Akins. He's trying to make up that gap that the time he lost. It would be unfortunate if he lost his tires after such an incredible comeback. But you know, it's the risk you have to take. You know, if you're going to push, you're going to waste your tires. You're going to burn your fuel. So when it comes to the end of the race, as we are now, you know, you have to maybe conserve more. it'll be interesting. Obviously, Aikens is probably in a similar position. You know, tires are going to be running low on life. Fuel's probably running low as well. So it's kind of a question of who saved more and who has more to play with.
Yeah, really difficult situation, of course, and oh well, maybe even who goes past the limits of their tires, completely shoots them, but maybe that's just enough so you can make that move that sticks.
Definitely. And, talking about a move that sticks, we cut back to the battle for 9th place. Wisniak, once again, very close coming up to Eau Rouge. I wonder if maybe he couldn't make the move around the outside to the chicane last time. Maybe he can this time. Maybe he's a bit more brave. Although he does seem a little closer, like once again in the slipstream. How is Stremere going to defend this is the question. Last time he went to the inside, he's doing that again. Is Wisniak going to try the outside? Is he closer alongside than he was last time? It's all about getting his braking point right. He's going to try it. He pinches into the inside. And he gets the move done. What an incredible move.
So close, but no contact. Fantastic racing here.
They're still side by side. Shamir's going to push himself back up the inside. They're still right next to each other. And Wisniak finally gets the move done. What an incredible move. That was amazing. Absolutely amazing. So much fun to watch.
I held my breath the entire time.
It was so close to making contact. I don't think they ever touched during that, which is, again, very respectful racing. They gave each other just enough room to make it through safely. And yeah, absolutely incredible move from Wisniak.
Really, really nice drive from both of them there. Absolute respects. Like, you could see that they both just respect each other a lot on track, and that's always fantastic to see. Now, last lap started by our leader, Tinko van der Velde, making his way, well, even more untouched now after the pit stops than before. But we have to say, he did have to sweat quite a bit, thanks to Samir Foch's effort in the first stint, and that was absolutely incredible to watch.
Definitely, it's kind of weird to think, he has, I think it's almost a 12-second gap to Aikens behind. There was a point he was not leading this race, Paul got past him with an incredible move, and it was really in the ascendancy. He had the pace and he had the track position. Unfortunately, the pit stop dumped him back, so Van der Velde now 13 seconds, an absolutely dominant victory again for him. Again, assuming he doesn't spin, but I'm not gonna put that into the universe. Curse of the commentator. We'll move on and pretend it didn't happen. The time has now run out. Van der Velde coming through the middle of the second sector. Not too long in the race to go for him. All he has to do is, once again, keep it clean, keep it on the track, not get a penalty, and cross the line with a brilliant, brilliant win.
Absolutely, and how brilliant it was. Just, well, I'd say normally flawless drive, but, in the first half of this, he got under quite heavy attack, actually, from Samir Foch, and I know I'm reverting to that again and again, but it's just that I was completely caught out by that. Foch has improved quite a lot, but yeah, absolutely fantastic drive from him.
Absolutely, and I think that's the thing. There was a time in this race when we weren't sure if he was going to have the pace to win, because Foch was on it every single lap, every single corner, and he got caught. But none of that really matters now. He's crossing the final chicane, he's coming up to the line, and Tinko van der Velde is going to take his second race win of the day. An absolutely incredible drive, very well-deserved victory for him. What a showing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Immediately we cut back to the battle for second, as Riley is so close. He's going to so tantalizing. He's going to be so disappointed with that. But Aikens keeps P2 ahead of Dean Riley. An excellent drive from him for third.
Oh, very frustrating for Sheldon Scott Muscat. Drive-through penalty just at the end.
Oh, that's so unfortunate. He was driving so well in 7th place. Again, a very quiet drive from him. Foe, obviously, crossing the line in 4th. Very, very good drive for him. Unfortunately, his pit stop blunder dumped him back, but there was the point he could have absolutely won this race if it all went right for him. Domniak, an excellent P5, very quiet race for him. Kind of kept his position, kept his pace, and some great, great points.
Yeah, really well done from him. Muscat actually taking a bit of a wider line now through the chicane, comes in 7th. Of course, will be dropped back a little bit at the end of that.
Yes, unfortunately for him, I believe it's plus 80 seconds, so absolutely crushing defeat. Probably a bit less than a lap he's going to lose there. Might still keep it in the points, depends how everyone else filters out. Very difficult to judge the lap times as it is currently.
Maresniak makes it in 9th, Stremere in 10th. Here comes Darren Mangion. Will come in 11th, but of course we'll get 10th place points.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the thing, like, Monjon is another driver, kind of quiet, kind of kept to himself for most of the race, but he's going to come back with a good haul of points.
Comes across the line. Rather quiet, but still a very well-driven race. And Gabriel Gonzalo comes here, very, very enthusiastic through Blanchimont. And into the last braking zone, came from quite far back and finishes in the points both times. So very good race from him indeed.
Absolutely, you know, he made some excellent overtakes, you know, battling with Gutra the majority of the race. A very, very measured drive from him, I think. Very, very well done.
Absolutely.
Now, again, we come back to the studio, once again joined with Lavinia.
Hi, Simon. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Thoughts on the race? What would you think of it?
Yeah, so I was following Riley for most of the time. He started in 5th place, then went back to 4th, and now finished in 3rd. I think his race was very impressive for me. He followed Atkins very closely during the past last 20 minutes, I believe. So it was a very close call for Riley to come in 2nd.
Definitely. You know, a very unfortunate race for him. You know, it's probably going to be one of those of what if. You know, if Amel had got out of the way, maybe he hadn't had the contact. He hadn't lost. I think he in the end lost 3-4 seconds, maybe a bit less.
Yeah.
But you know, and he overcame it. You know, to finish literally pretty much pushing Aikens around the final chicane. An absolutely amazing drive. Kind of unfortunate. You know, you wonder if he hadn't lost that time, could he have got past Aikens? Could he have challenged Van der Velde? You know, it's going to be one of those frustrating races for him. How many what if questions? And yeah, one of those he's probably going to have a pint to get over, as you imagine.
What
But,
did
you
you
know,
think, Nico?
Yeah, absolutely. Just really great race from everyone involved. Foch, of course, very, very unlucky, of course, with that messed up pit stop. So, you know, I think he really could have challenged for the win this time round. Nevertheless, great drive from him to be able to just out of nowhere seemingly challenge Tinker van der Velde for the lead and for the win at that point. You know, absolutely fantastic drive from him. I'm sure he's going to be beating himself up a little bit about that, but nevertheless, I mean, overall, the points are out. He's still in P3. Kalai Atkins with 2 second places in P2, and Tinker van der Velde, of course, with 2 wins, gets P1 of the evening. So great drive from all 3 of them. Of course, Dean Riley, also fantastic drive from him. But sadly, due to him not taking the pit stop in the first race, dropped him down to the last place, or second last or third last place for points. Now, those were the points that he really needed against Samir Foch.
Definitely. I think when it comes to Dean Riley, obviously his first race, a bit more on the strange side, you know, choosing not to take a pit stop, choosing to risk the penalty. Didn't end up working out for him, but he clearly had the pace. Both races he was there battling at the front. So a good showing from him. And obviously for, you know, we've kind of been saying it all race, you know, in the commentary that it's kind of a surprising performance. And yet he finished in 3rd in the sprint race. So he had the pace. A very well drive from him, a very brilliant race from him, and a good showing. Again, like Dean Riley, probably a situation of what ifs. You know, if he had got his pit stop right, if he hadn't made mistakes, could he have battled for the win? Could he have won the race? Unfortunately, we're not going to know. Tinker van der Velde took every opportunity given to him, won the race in absolutely dominant fashion, and drove perfectly. Didn't put a foot wrong.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, I think even if it had been a bit less time that he had lost in this situation, I think he could have even battled Riley and Atkins for that position. And quite honestly, with the point difference, I think then if we would have had Atkins in P3 and Foch in P2, then actually we would have had Foch in P2 overall as well by 1 point. So, you know, a lot of what ifs, a lot
Definitely.
of, you know, this could have happened. And yeah, very, very unfortunate in the end. But Samir Foch, the man who just came out of nowhere and took it to the leader, is now joining us in the commentators booth. Samir, how are you doing?
Hello, I'm doing great.
So,
interesting races.
Absolutely, and you know, first race for you, you know, a little bit eventless, so to say, but then you know, getting by the crash from
yeah,
what's his face? Luke Whitehead, that's his name. Yeah, sorry. With that crash and with the penalty for Riley, you got a third place inherited.
Yeah.
But then out of nowhere, in the feature race, where did that pace come from? Please tell us.
I mean, I was clearly on a different strategy. I was half the fuel. I realized that very quickly as well, that I'm on completely different strategy to everyone else, because I did change tires in the middle, so I had the big push mentality. But it took me a bit too long in the first stint to get past P1 and 2, so the second stint was never gonna come back to P1 again. But I think it was fine for my pace. I think judging by the first race, I clearly didn't have Tinko pace, so taking the bit longer race in 2 separate stints and doing the tire change was a more fun way to do it for me, at least.
Yeah, absolutely, completely different strategy, but just either way, the pace just came out of nowhere. Like we just didn't anticipate it whatsoever. And
yeah, well, you definitely have way more leeway with the tires, because I can be very aggressive and I don't have to worry about what the tires will feel like in 15 minutes. I can just go really hard on them and change them and start all over again.
Are you thinking even without the tire swap, you could have maybe fought for P2 or maybe P1 even?
No. I think the first race showed what our pace is gonna be on even fuel and even strategy. So I think maybe I could have gotten P3 in the second race with the same strategy, but it would have been really tough. I don't think my setup is very good on tires. That was one of the reasons why I picked this strategy to begin with. So I don't know. Maybe P3 would have been possible with more conventional way of doing things, but I enjoyed the race nevertheless.
Well, either way, fantastic job. You kept us on our toes, especially with that move down the inside at Lacombe. Really well done. And yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
Now we're going to move over to Simon, because we've got Kalai Atkins here, our P2 setter. And I think he's going to have a couple of stories to tell as well from that battle.
I have no doubt. Hello, Kalai. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing really good, yeah.
Two second place finishes. This obviously in the second race, a bit close with Dean Riley there. How are you feeling after your throwing?
I'm feeling ecstatic at the moment. Like, that was such a tough race in the second one. I made a mistake on pressures, and the whole race I was 26.6, should have been a whole PSI up, struggled that whole race. But the first race, struggled with pressures again, but wasn't as bad, and managed to just get 2 seconds, and that was enough to finish second overall.
Yeah, and you mentioned these pressures. Obviously, we didn't know this in the commentary, but you defended very well, like from Riley in the beginning of the second race, and then obviously the back markers kind of pushed him back a bit. And then he
Yeah,
was
the back markers, yeah, they were a pain in the arse. I'm sorry. Yeah, they don't know what they was doing really. Should have moved out because of blue flags, but caused a lot of chaos in that race. But I managed to not get involved in all of that. I'd like to thank everyone involved. Like to thank my dad for he's here watching. Thank him for always believing in me. Like to say massive thanks to Tim Blacksmith for sponsoring me. Like to say massive thanks to Omega E. They've done an amazing job with the setup. I just messed up with the presses, of course, but still managed to get P2.
Well, it was an excellent drive, both races, issues or not, and thank you very much for your gratitude as well.
Okay,
It was lovely having you, and
thank you.
2 amazing drivers. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Right, so then I've got Tinko here, the king of Spa. Tinko, how are you doing?
Hello, I'm doing very good, thank you.
I mean, very good is an understatement after winning it all, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm very happy.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about the races. The sprint race, you seemed overall quite untouchable, but in the feature race, in that first stint, did you expect some edges to come out of nowhere there and start challenging you?
No, not at all. It was quite scary, and I was quite scared he was on full fuel as well, but I almost knew for sure he wasn't, so I just let him go past me and just tried staying behind him. And yeah, then took him in the pits because his pits, of course, took way longer because he had to take new tires and fuel. So I just knew I had to let him pass. There was no point fighting him, and yeah, just drive away from the rest. I was quite lucky at the start as well because yeah, he was fighting with Kali, and I could just drive away. But yeah, then he drove to me, and then I was quite scared, but it was all good.
Either way, fantastic drive from you, and just overall, did you have like I alluded to it a few times with the McLaren on longer stints? You know, having a bit of fuel trouble sometimes running in map 1. Did you have any problems with that whatsoever?
No, not really, because we are using a short formation lap, so that helps. And also doing a pit stop mid-race takes like 2 minutes of the time. So I didn't really have trouble. I believe 1 lap extra remaining at the end. So that was quite good for me. And yeah, I mean, normally on a full hour, I think you would miss out on a few leaders. But it was fine today because the short formation lap and extra pit stop in the middle.
All right. So, do you want to do any shout outs to team sponsors or maybe family?
Yeah, to WPR, of course, for hosting, and HyperX for sponsoring, and all the other sponsors, and the broadcasting team, and everyone involved. Thanks to you guys, and yeah, I loved today. It was good racing, and hope to see you next time.
Yeah, we hope to see you again as well, Tinko. Fantastic race today. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, that was the round at Spa-Francorchamps for the HyperX Open Series. Thank you, of course, to our sponsors AMD HyperX, GT Omega, and Thrustmaster for making this possible, and of course our broadcast partners ESTV, Motorsport TV, and TVM Sport. There are still plenty of events coming from World Pro Racing. If you saw this for the first time, you saw sim racing for the first time, and you're thinking, well, that looks pretty swell, I'd like to get involved, just register on World Pro Racing on the website. You can take part in these races as well. We have plenty of events coming, as I said. And of course, it's friendly to any sort of skill group. You can start as a beginner here. You can be, sort of already with your first tastes, or you can be completely experienced, as we saw with, for example, Tinko van der Velde. And yeah, just have fun here. This was it. Thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. Yeah, we've been, well, Simon and Tavidia in Malta in the studio, me from Germany. A little bit of technical difficulties, but we got through it all. And of course,
fine, we survived.
Yeah, we survived it all.
It's been an absolutely amazing time. So, join us today week, I believe we have the next round of the Malta National GT3 Championship. So join us for that.
Absolutely. But for tonight, at, well, just after 11 p.m. European time, good night from everyone here at World Pro Racing. See you next time.
Thank you.
World Pro Racing, where sim racing becomes real.
L-ewwel ħaġa bħala Gaming Malta l-esports huwa settur importanti ħafna għalina. Meta nħarsu lejn gaming ma nitkellmux biss fuq l-online gaming, imma il-video gaming u anki l-esports. L-esports huwa settur li internazzjonalment qed jikber ħafna u Malta għandha rol importanti wkoll x'tilab f'dan is-settur. Coming back to home, il-World Pro Racing hija kumpanija li dit mill-Maltin u qed tagħmel suċċess internazzjonali. Ġifieri Malta għalija hija pedina għal l-ambizzjonijiet tagħhom fuq pjan internazzjonali.
L-ewwel rrid insir Formula 1 driver u ngħaddi lil Lewis Hamilton bir-rekord tiegħu. U mbagħad wara rrid insir engineer.
Mela, t-tifel huwa professional driver diġà tal-go-karts, tella barra minn Malta nkajsu u training u hekk allura bejn telliqa oħra meta ma jkunux jistgħu jiċċessaw it-trek huwa tajjeb li jiġi hawnhekk jitrejnja hija simulator bħal go-kart qiegħed isuq ġol l-istess trakka li jsuqgħu Malta lura jkun qiegħed training minflok qiegħed ġa trakka stess. Għandu l-coach tiegħu tas-CRG stess, jgħalmu jagħtu ħtiebs barra minn Malta l-istess ħaġa kalmuhom kif iduru mal-kantunieri, race line, il-ħinijiet x'in jafsu l-gass, il-break. Hija teknika ħafna l-ħaġa, ġifieri kapaċi ħafna iktar minn it-tifel. Huwa post fejn jista' jiżvoga. Meta jmorru ġa trakku ma stess jgħidulek aħna nofsuna żvogajna flaxej ħossuhom tranquilli għax ineħħu l-istress tal-ġurnata, l-istress tal-iskola, kollox. Plus li huwa sport sabiħ għalihom li jitrejnjaw. It-tifel trabba ġol karozzi, allura għalih hija passjoni. Dan iċ-ċentru għalih huwa post fejn jista' jiżvoga jkunu. Għal dawk il-parents forsi li jibżaw jgħidulek għax huwa perikolus. Hawnhekk m'hawnx periklu. Edin protetti, ġobini, it-tfal jaraw xiridu. Jekk ma jibdewx issa minn ta' żgħira xorta jibdew meta jkunu kbar, so ma jteżwelithom l-opportunitajiet kollha li tkun tista' tihom meta jkunu żgħar.
Jien ma' World Pro Racing naħdem bħala replay person u nsuq mat-tim ukoll. Main task jien normalment nagħmel nieħosib li l-computers kollha din jaħdmu, nieħosib li l-komunità għandna platform online li kollox qed immur sew anke nikkomunikaw ma' drivers u wara l-events nikteb l-artikli nippubblikawhom fuq il-website. Jien as such bdejt bħal kull student naqa' technical know-hows, imbagħad ovvjament through time bdejt nitgħallem kif ċertu pereżempju broadcasts, ċertu affarijiet, ċertu preparations li jsiru qabel dik regarding World Pro Racing anke bħala sim racing. Bdejt jien bħala e-sport jiġifieri aktar fuq computer, bdejt bil-mod nibni bħala steerings u hekk tracks tibda bil-mod kollox pass pass as such.
Senna was a god. No one could even dream to follow him.
I'm from a very humble background.
The role of women at that time were really difficult.
This is so dangerous. You are risking not only your life, but also my life.
World Pro Racing, where sim racing becomes real.